Welcome, everybody. It is a very unusual time, and it is an unusual meeting. I appreciate everyone who's participating either by listening in on the Skype call or watching on KCTV or cable channel 22. We're going to do the very best we can with this setup today, and all of your participation, whether remotely or just by watching or listening or by speaking, is really appreciated. And I'm going to ask our clerk, Melanie Pedroza, to please go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
So you want me to unmute them, eh?
They should be able to
I'm going to unmute Councilmember.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and call the roll while I'm unmuting, please.
Councilmember Dembowski.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Here.
Councilmember Lambert.
Here.
Councilmember McDermott. Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Updegrove.
Here.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Here.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Hold on, he's muted.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Here.
Madam Chair.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, I think we may have to just rely on folks, the council members, to mute and unmute themselves because of the length of this list. If you all have trouble doing that, please speak up and we can try to help. All right, at this point in the agenda, we normally conduct a Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag to begin our meetings, but because we're not all in the room together with the flag, it's not possible today, but I wanted to take just a moment at this point on the agenda to recognize all the folks who are out there on the front lines of this epidemic, our first responders, our nurses, our doctors, our caregivers, people working in all kinds of jobs necessary to keep us going, like our bus drivers, wastewater treatment technicians, solid waste workers, grocery store clerks. There's so many people who are out there doing work today to make sure that we all can stay home and stay safe. And I wanted to acknowledge them right at the beginning of this meeting. We're asking them to engage with the public daily and to manage this ongoing crisis. We're very fortunate to have highly trained and dedicated staff in King County who are doing those jobs today. So with that, we'll move on to the approval of our minutes of March 10th and the special meeting of March 13th. Councilmember McDermott, are you on, and can you move approval of the minutes, please?
Move approval of our March 10th minutes and the minutes of our March 13th meeting as well, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The minutes are before us. Are there any comments, questions, or changes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That's Angel. She's opposed. Okay. The minutes are approved. All right. I'm going
I heard a bunch of ayes and one barking no.
One barking no. Yeah, I'm going to declare a moratorium on apologizing for background noises right after I apologize for my background noise. Okay. Melanie, we have the one addition to the council agenda. Would you please read that into the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one motion. It's 2020-0159, a motion establishing King County Council's intent related to collective bargaining with the King County Police Officers Guild, and this is being added for first reading and action without referral to committee.
Okay. Where will that come up in the agenda? Will it come up alongside the ordinances around the Sheriff's Guild bargaining?
It's item 58 at the end of the agenda, but you can take the agenda out of order if you, yes, at the end. Exactly.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Anything else to add to the agenda, colleagues? All right. We will move on to public comment. So I've got a long script about how this is going to go, but first we have to take some procedural votes to tee up the items that will be before us for public comment. So we're going to do those in order. And I'm first going to call on Councilmember McDermott to move to suspend the rules to take actions on items 13 and 14 without referral to committee and to hold the public hearing without waiting the required period.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So moved.
All right, is there any comment or discussion on this motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries. Oh, any opposed? I should call for opposition in case the dog wants to weigh in again. Okay, the motion carries. Councilmember McDermott, would you please move to relieve the Budget and Fiscal Management Committee in order to take action on item 9?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Are there any questions or discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Councilmember McDermott, would you move to relieve the Local Services Committee in order to take action on items items 10 through 12?
Madam Chair, I move that we relieve the Local Services Committee of items 10 through 12 on today's council agenda.
Thank you. It's before us. Are there any questions or comments on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And Councilmember McDermott, would you move to relieve the Labor Policy Committee in order to take action on items 55 and 56?
Madam Chair, I move that we relieve the Labor Policy Committee of items 55 and 56 as they appear in our council agenda today in order to take action today.
Thank you. It's before us. Any comments or questions on this motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? The motion carries. Sorry, we have one more. Councilmember McDermott, would you move to suspend the rules to take action on items 25 through 33 and item 58 without referral to committee?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Any comments or questions on this motion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
In the opinion of the chair, that motion carries as, any opposed? Okay, I don't hear any opposition and the motion carries. So what we've done there, for those who are following along, is we have taken items that were in topical committees that we have. Our committees have all been stood down for the duration of the emergency or until we're able to have more functionality, which we're working toward. And so in order to take action on time-sensitive items here today, we have relieved the committees of jurisdiction of those items to bring them forward to vote on today. We have a number of items before us, and I'm just going to summarize some of them real briefly so people on the line know what we're going to be asking them to testify to in a moment. We have got, for action today, a lease for King County Airport and Metro, 2 water district annexations, one in Covington, one in Northeast Sammamish. We have a briefing only, but no action on fireworks regulation, and a motion to establish a council volunteer program to respond to COVID-19. 2 items related to the King County Police Officers Guild, one to approve the collective bargaining agreement between King County and the Guild, and one to approve the appropriation of money needed to fund that bargaining agreement. And then we have 3 items that have to do with process and procedure for how we're going to operate. No, 3 items for how we're going to operate during this time of when we're not able to be together, and a proviso motion on isolation, quarantine, and recovery sites. So that's what's on the agenda for today. And I will now turn to describing how we're going to do public comment. So today we have what is usually our once-a-month public comment when people can talk to us about anything. It doesn't have to be an item on the agenda, although I did lay them out so people can be aware of what's on our agenda. We also will have a hearing on public ordinances that were listed for action today. So you can speak to either something on the agenda or whatever topic is within the purview of the King County Council. Under the council's rules, we offer this opportunity on the fourth Tuesday of each month. The public comment period, I'm going to attempt to limit today to 30 minutes and give each person 2 minutes to speak, although it's hard to know how many people we have, so I'm going to ask folks to be a little flexible about this. I've already said that general comment is limited to matters related to county government, but the usual rules apply. It may not be used for the purpose of assisting a campaign for election of any person to any office, nor can it be used for the promotion of or opposition to any ballot proposition. And it must not include obscene speech. If a speaker fails to abide by these restrictions or disrupts the meeting, then they'll be ruled out of order and may be muted or, in extreme cases, asked to exit the virtual meeting. I hope that's not going to happen today, and everybody's going to work to make this meeting work. So having an entirely remote meeting is unprecedented for the King County Council. And here's what we have planned in order to manage public comment. As members of the public join the meeting by calling in, you are all automatically muted. And I can't see the names of anybody who has called in, only phone numbers. So we have some people who have filled out the online form before the meeting, and we'll be able to see their names. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first get the online forms, and this is a key to staff. I'm going to need the online forms given to me in a way that I can use them. I'm going to call on those names first. I'm going to call each person in order and ask you to give your testimony. Then I'll call on the people on the line by last 4 digits of your phone number. That's the only way I'll be able to call on people. And so here's how it's going to go. When I call on someone either by name or phone number, I will unmute your line so we can all hear you. If you have filled out a form, please start by confirming your name before giving testimony. If you have not filled out a form, I'm going to ask you to say your name and spell it so we can put it in the record. And then after you say your name, please just pause for a moment so that I can acknowledge you, just to be sure that we can hear you, because I'm not perfect with the unmuting, and I wouldn't want you to give your whole testimony before realizing that nobody heard you. So just say your name, spell it if you're on the phone, and then pause. I'll acknowledge you, and then you'll have your 2 minutes to speak as you would in a regular council meeting. There will be a timer, which you'll hear go off when we've reached 2 minutes. At that point, I'm going to ask that people wrap up. You can finish your thought if you're in the middle of a thought when the timer goes off, but please wrap up your comments so we can allow the next person to speak. And then please hang up, if you would, after you've provided your comment, and you can follow the remainder of the meeting on King County Television or on our cable TV channel, our PEG channel, which is channel 22, because the fewer people we have on the Skype call, the easier it's going to be to manage the meeting. Of course, you can choose to hang up at any time. Nobody is forced to remain on the phone. Finally, we do have a Spanish language interpreter on the line to provide interpretation if needed during public comment. We had some folks last meeting who required Spanish interpretation. Anybody who needs interpretation will be given 2 minutes to speak and an additional 2 minutes for the interpretation. And I'm going to pause now and call on our interpreter to repeat the instructions for public comment in Spanish, and that's Jose. So I'm going to see if I can unmute him. Number is, right. Just going to take a second, Melanie, please. Might need your help, Madam Clerk.
Okay, just a moment.
I think I got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Jose, can you speak up so we can hear you?
Yes, I can hear him.
And you can hear you as well. Are you able to translate the comments, rules for public comment that I just described?
Yes, it was under the council rule, correct?
Yeah, on the rules for public comment, yes.
Yes, okay, that's fine. So, what bajo las reglas del consulado, ofrecemos la oportunidad para que hagan preguntas, comentarios públicas. el cuarto martes de cada mes. Estos públicos comentarios son limitados a 30 minutos por persona, el cual se hace 2 minutos para que se pueda hablar uno con otro. Pero ahora lo vamos a limitar a 30 minutos. Estos son relacionados con el gobierno y el propósito es de asistir a la campaña, de ninguna elección ni nada, únicamente son relacionadas con los problemas que tenemos en este momento acerca del COVID-21 o de la coronavirus. En ausencia del speaker va a obedecer las reglas y va a seguir las reglas para que el orador o la persona que está explicando ahí pueda, escucharla. Teniendo todo esto con todo este precedente, por lo consiguiente, el King County, el condado del estado, ha asegurado que ha llamado y comprender todas las situaciones para hacer unos comentarios generales. ¿Ok? ¿Alguna pregunta? All right. ¿Tienen alguna pregunta en este momento? Do you have any questions at this moment, so? ¿Te escucharon? Ya terminé. I'm finished.
Hello?
Hello? Yes.
Anybody there?
Well, this is me, Jose.
Gambowski's
Yes.
still here.
Jose, that was pretty good testimony. Where's the chair?
Hi.
How you doing?
This is me. Thank you all. Thank you, Jose. Appreciate that.
Okay, gracias. Thank you.
Okay. One of the challenges that we're learning right away is that I end up with a number of windows open and I have to flip through to find the right one. So
Okay.
now we're going to move into public comment.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the speaker list. Madam Clerk, I'm going to need you to help me with muting and unmuting phones. It's going to be too hard. Or you could read out the names and I can unmute the phones. It doesn't matter to me, whoever wants to do what.
I have the names in front of me. I can read the names, but can I read the items into the record first really quickly?
Madam Clerk, would you please read the items for public comment into the record?
I would love to. Thank you. Item 7 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0007, approving an ordinance approving the City of Kent Water System Plan 2019. Item 8 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0042, an ordinance approving the Sammamish Plateau 2018 Water Comprehensive Plan revised October 2019. Item 9 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0063, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a new lease to support the operation of the Metro Transit Department. Item 10 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0040 relating to the annexation of approximately 450 acres of land into the Covington Water District, known as the Pacific Raceway CWD annexation for the purpose of water service. Item 11 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0050 relating to the removal of approximately 1.5 acres of land from the Sammamish Plateau Water and Sewer District and annexation into the Northeast Sammamish Water and Sewer District, known as the Cerium annexation for the purpose of sewer service. Item 12 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0109 relating to fireworks regulation. Item 13 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0155 relating to the service of process on the county during an emergency and declaring an emergency. Item 14 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0157 amending the King County Council rules meetings in response to an emergency declaration issued by the King County Executive and declaring an emergency. Item 55 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0105 approving and adopting the collective bargaining agreement negotiated by and between King County and the King County Police Officers Guild, King County Sheriff's Office representing employees in the King County Sheriff's Office and establishing the effective date of the agreement. And item 56 is proposed ordinance number 2020-0106 relating to public safety, making a net supplemental appropriation of $10,103,000 to the King County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. I am going to suggest a change to the procedures that we outlined, and I'll tell you why. I've gone through the first 3 people who were signed up to speak, and I've only seen one of their phone numbers on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call on the people whose phone numbers match with the sign-ups, and they can go first, and then we're just going to do phone numbers in order because I don't know who else is who, all right? So the first person I have is Talia Ringer. Wait a moment while I unmute you, Ms. Ringer. You're still on mute. Okay. See if we can unmute. Okay, Ms. Ringer, are you on the line?
Hi, yes. Yeah, this is Talia Ringer.
Okay, please go ahead and give your testimony.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I reached out by written comment, just asking about resources for mental illness, abuse, and addiction during the stay-at-home order, so that we can prevent deaths of, abuse and deaths of despair, in addition to deaths from the virus. I think this is especially important for people who live alone or in unsafe households, as well as for people with severe mental illness for whom things like teletherapy are not quite enough. And unfortunately, in Washington State and in King County, these resources are often stretched thin, even during times of global health. So I would just like to ask the council to plan to help these vulnerable populations, for example, through some of the possible volunteer opportunities that were mentioned earlier, not just helping with the impacts of the pandemic itself, but also with the impacts of isolation. And I would also like for the county to consult with relevant experts in mental health, abuse, and addiction to address this. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling in, and those are very timely and important comments. We appreciate hearing them. I will ask you, if you would, if it's possible to follow along on the video rather than staying on the phone. If it's not possible, you're welcome to stay on the phone. Okay. The next two people signed up to speak are Rita Aronson and Dylan Aronson. They are at the same number, and I'm going to unmute you now. Please bear with me while I do. Okay. Ms. Aronson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, please go ahead and give your testimony.
Okay, hold on one second.
Well, it's only fair. I've asked everybody to hold on about 5 times already.
As a resident of White Center and someone who lives directly across the street from the proposed quarantine site, I still voice my concern and think I speak for my entire community, especially those who cannot due to language barriers, when I say this is not the place for a quarantine site. The ESJ tool was not used in making this decision, and I think we have already seen in Kent what can happen when proper organization has not been done here. I do not want to be part of an experiment to see what can happen in communities where there are poor families of color thrown into this mess. My building alone houses 298 units. This is a low-income building with more than 60% immigrant families living with multiple children and grandparents under one roof. There are language barriers. There are many people here without health care and resources to even survive this. I don't see why this facility can't be placed in a less populated area. There are at least 5 apartment buildings surrounding the site. There is nothing else on the street but families that are poor. I myself have tried working with Callie Knight to get information distributed in multiple languages to my complex. This has been fought by the organization that owns my building. My fear is that the folks that need this information the most will not get it. They will be left out of any updates on how to get resources and how to remain healthy and stay safe during this time. My trust in this government is lost. People are going to lose their lives here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for sharing your comments. Is Dylan Aronson with you on the line, and would he like to give his comments as well?
She's actually not available. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. It's that's fine. So I'll move on. Thank you again very much. And if it is possible, and if you would please watch online and hang up on the Skype call. If not, you can stay on the call. Okay. The next person is 7594. Mm-hmm. Just give me one moment, please. There. Okay. All right. The next person is I believe Mr. Kirog Baraket or Baraket Kiros. Are you there, sir? Mr. Kiros, can you hear me? Okay, we'll come back to that one and see if we can make it work out. Next person on the list is, sorry, David Freeberg. Do we have him on the line? One moment while I look to see. There we are. There you are. Okay, I'm unmuting you now. Mr. Freeberg, are you there?
This is Dave Freeberg.
Hi, thank you for joining us. Would you please go ahead and give your testimony?
You bet. I'm calling in regarding the proposed ban of fireworks in unincorporated King County. And I'm calling in because this has been a family business of ours since 1985, and I just want the council to consider the fact that in the last 35 years, this has been an organization that has assisted local organizations such as Little Leagues, charities such as the National MS Society, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, SAFE, which is a horse rescue operation that works with all the local animal shelters. And, I want the council to really consider the implications of banning the fireworks and whether or not that's going to accomplish whatever this is intended to accomplish, because as we've seen in many other places, what ends up happening when you ban instead of educate and regulate is people will simply go to the tribal outlets for retail fireworks, but it's actually a more dangerous class of firework, and you can look this up. And now you will not have the tax revenue that is generated from the local retail organizations such as ours that also then benefits local organizations and charities. And ultimately, you're still going to need to deploy those resources needed for the few that ruin it for the many by not taking fireworks seriously, respecting them, and compromising their neighbors, which I do understand there is that concern, but again, it's the few that ruin it for the many. And I think especially with the economic times we are facing and going to continue facing, the last thing you want to do is compromise another industry in our region.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving your testimony. And I'm going to stop repeating myself now, but when people are done, if they are able to watch online and free up the phone line, we really appreciate it. But you are welcome to stay on the Skype line. It's available for people who don't have an option. Okay, the next person signed up to speak is Mr. Frank Sorba. I'm going to unmute you now. Mr. Sorba, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Please give your comment.
Well, I'm going to echo what the comments were just made by your previous caller, and I would like to add that, fireworks have been banned in other cities that we know about around Renton, Bellevue, Issaquah, Tukwila, and all one has to do on the 4th of July is take a look when it gets dark at how many fireworks are being used in all those areas where they're banned. And people, I think what has happened is these regulations and ordinances have just made other citizens become lawbreakers, and they're going to shoot off fireworks, whether they buy them at a safe and sane location that sells, good fireworks, safe fireworks, and educates people, such as our group. We're one of the nonprofits that I don't even know what company that gentleman is with, but it may be the one that supplies us, and we've got 3 nonprofits that share in running the fireworks booth in our city. But our city has not banned them, and they haven't banned them for the reason that was very practical at a city council meeting. They don't think that they can, even if they pass the regulation, they don't believe that the police force or the fire department can enforce it. And they would be putting an undue burden on those organizations to try to enforce an ordinance that is not enforceable. Now, you may disagree with this, and maybe you think it's enforceable, but I think the practical actions that happen every 4th of July show that it's not enforceable, and that whether the departments do or don't want to enforce it, good people are being turned into lawbreakers by either going to the reservations and buying the products and shooting off in their respective neighborhoods. So I understand why you might want to do this, but I don't know how many incidents have been reported in our city. We take a lot of care in passing out literature to each customer that buys from us, and we put that in every bag of fireworks that are purchased. The families come up and buy them. We've been doing it for 40 years, and our fire chief, we meet with our fire chief and our fire department, and we've just gotten our permit and our reseller permit from the state this year. And I'm proud to say that, our people do take care and do not, we haven't had any incidents in our area. And I just don't know what the purpose is of this ban. Is it to protect neighbors and their properties? You don't have to answer this, I know, but have you had a lot of incidents where fires have occurred? And if so, like the gentleman said, is it the actions of a few over the good actions of the many? I just think you need to think about it. And that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Sorben, for sharing those comments.
All right.
Okay. That brings me to the end of the list of sign-ups. There were two people, and I apologize to them. I could not locate a number that coordinated with the name, but there are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 11 people on the line waiting to comment. So I'm just going to go down.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I do see the phone number for Barakat Kiros, if you want me to try to unmute.
That would be great.
Okay.
I did try that one, and he didn't respond, so let's go back to him and try again.
Okay, he's unmuted.
Mr.
I am online.
There you are. Welcome. Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, I was just trying to get. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify. My name is Barakat Kiros, and I am testifying on behalf of CERC Coalition of Immigrant, Refugee, and Communities of Color, and WAMA, Washington Africa Media Association, in my opposition to the White Center quarantine area. I believe it fails to consider race and racism as fundamental concern. Yet there is a deep disjunction between what the race and social justice policy guarantees and what the practice of elected officials entails, and racial stigma is amplified and reinforced. The Coalition of Immigrant, Refugee, and Communities of Color suggested that to move in the direction of rectifying the disparity and inequality that exist must approach the problem in form of social justice perspective, a perspective that seeks to eliminate the constraints and the impede marginalized community from realizing their full potential as a citizens. We, therefore, began with the assumption that everyone be better off if racism and racial injustice were eliminated. Racism is any attitude or action or institutional arrangement that results in disadvantage of a group of people based ostensibly upon a group linked economic and immigrant status. Racism can manifest overtly or covertly, intentionally or intentionally, individually or collectively. Your decision to choose white center indicates an alarming aggression away from the equity instead of a progression toward it. Racism without resistance. I believe that because we live in a society where racism is real and affects people differently, race and social justice seems to maintain racial operation by ignoring the many ways race matters in your decision. Please move the quarantine area from the heavily populated low-income and racially populated where the people of color are disproportionately impacted. And we have the right to know why. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kiros. All right. I'm now going to start going down the list of people by phone number. And the first person is last four digits of the number are 1346.
You are no longer muted.
If you would please state your name and spell it for the record, and then I'll recognize you. Person at phone number 1346. All right, I'm going to move on to the next.
You've been muted.
I think we just did 5413, right?
We just did 5794.
Okay, with the person whose phone number ends in 5413, you're unmuted. Please state your name.
5413, that's me. That's Jose Gaitan, the Spanish interpreter.
Oh, hi. Okay, welcome, Jose. I'm going to mute you again.
Thank you.
Okay, phone number ending in 4411. Is there a person whose phone number ends in 4411? Okay, I'll move on. I'm calling on the person whose phone number ends in 9655.
Yes, my name is Jason Trout. I'm with TNT Fireworks.
There you are. I'm glad you were on our list. I'm sorry I didn't recognize the number. Please go ahead and give your testimony, Mr. Trout.
I apologize. I didn't call in on the same number.
No, it's not your fault. This is total experiment. Please go ahead.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk today, and I recognize how difficult this is for you guys as well, not being able to meet in a public place. I represent TNT Fireworks. We're the largest wholesaler in King County of fireworks. Definitely opposed to the ban on 2020-0109. We've operated in King County for over 30 years. This process of moving it out of the committee, voting on that today, this being the only way that we could give public comment, it's been, at the very least, difficult for us to try to follow. I hear about the other items on this agenda and quarantine facilities and help for addiction and racism, and I find it very difficult to believe that a ban on fireworks, something that's been legal in the county for over 30 years, really rates at the top of the list for you guys to be deciding at this point. For our nonprofits, it's been very difficult for them to voice their concerns. They certainly haven't had a normal public meeting where they could go and meet, go and speak in front of everyone. I understand that, they're not allowed to do that, but they can't even meet with each other to be able to, voice their concerns over the ban of fireworks in King County. And so I'm just asking that the counselors allow the nonprofit organizations and my company, due process to be able to save our businesses. We've operated in King County for over 30 years, and frankly, we'll be put out of business if this ban is allowed to go through, and to not have the due process to do this when it's been operating this way for 30 years, and we haven't. It certainly doesn't rate up, with quarantine facilities and other items on this agenda. There really isn't a reason to not allow us the due process to be able to voice our concerns over the ban in this limited amount of time, and especially in this time where the quarantine has really prevented us from being able to meet and to organize. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trout. I just want to reiterate for you and for others that item is on for briefing today only, so there's not intended to be action today. And your point about the challenges of communicating are quite evident here today, so thank you. Okay, now I am moving on to the person whose last four digits are 9233.
Hi there. My name is Stephanie Polyakov, and I'll spell the last name for you. It's P as in Paul, Oliakoff.
Okay, thank you for calling. We can hear you. Please go ahead and give your testimony.
I would love to invite the business owners who have called in to discuss their businesses regarding fireworks. I do live in unincorporated King County. You are welcome to come to my house on July 4th between 4 p.m. and 4 a.m., and then for the rest of the days, about 2 weeks on either side of that, as well as year-round. But come to my house on July 4th, and let's discuss your business during the war zone. You're also welcome to sit down with the woman who lost her home, her husband, and her pets this past July 4th. There have been multiple public venues where we have been discussing this with our representatives for the last 7 months. So I understand this is your business, but I would strongly tell you that it's unacceptable and it's absolutely a priority with everything that's going on now, because if these things continue in this kind of environment, you're going to end up with violence. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm calling on the person who is got the last four digits 6265. Telephone number ending in 6265. All right. How about the person with the telephone number ending in...
Hi.
Oh, 6265?
No,
53?
I am at, yeah.
Okay, I was on. You got ahead of me. I was just about to call on you. Good job. Please state your name.
Oh, no, I was just put on. My name is Jen Baines. I'm a White Center resident and community organizer. And we have a letter that the community has worked together to draft, and I just want to get it on the record. This letter came about as the community came together to see you, and thank you again for being able to hold these remotely, to see you at the hearing on March 10th. This is directed at you at the King County Council overall. As a group of residents, business owners, and organizers here in White Center, we see that the county is choosing to site quarantine facilities and low-income immigrant communities where people of color already bear many other disproportionate negative social impacts. We formally oppose the coronavirus quarantine facility that has abruptly been sited in a very populated residential area in our neighborhood. Ranking 4.6 out of 5 in King County's own equity and social justice measuring tool, ESJ, White Center is one of King County's most racially and ethnically diverse neighborhoods, and the disproportionate ESJ impact here is almost incalculable. We demand that these facilities be removed immediately and that the county's own equity and social justice strategic plan be applied to all ongoing siting and public health decisions. As King County continues to respond to this crisis, we are already seeing the risk posed by the lack of planning and safeguards to community members in Kent who have now been exposed because of the hasty and unsecure quarantine site decision to put it in a Kent motel that the county bought earlier this month. We reject this disregard of the health, safety, and well-being of our already negatively impacted immigrants, people of color, and low-income residents that live in our unincorporated urban neighborhood of approximately 15,300 residents. Over 27 languages are spoken here, and many local businesses are owned and operated by people of color who are already stigmatized. The coronavirus quarantine facility in White Center is made up of compact metal trailers that lack even the most basic necessities. As of this writing, there is no connection to sewer or water. These quarantine trailers are adjacent or in very close proximity to low-income which has already been mentioned by other neighbors, very close by. One apartment having almost 300 family residences. Many nearby residents are elderly and otherwise at high risk of dying if infected with coronavirus, as we've seen in most of the deaths reported in Kirkland. Many of the elderly residents in White Center are low income and have limited English proficiency. Moreover, our elders are also much more likely to be living in multi-generational households where they are often in close contact with younger people and children, whom we know can be asymptomatic and therefore more prone to inadvertently exposing them to this virus. To date, King County has not implemented adequate community outreach proportional to the grave risks burdened upon the White Center residents whose lives are now in jeopardy due to the county's forced decision. There is no trustworthy action plan to safeguard residents, including many who are medically uninsured, from exposure to the virus, nor is there a specific cohesive message for community leaders to relay to residents about protective measures for their families and children. King County failed to uphold its own ESJ principles through the reckless and racist placement of the quarantine facility in White Center, thereby targeting the health and well-being of the racially and ethnically diverse communities where there has been, up until now, 0 confirmed cases of coronavirus. You were not transparent with your communication and documentation of the selection process, its methodology or criteria for designating a quarantine site in a residential area with low-income communities of color. We request that public health and emergency response information is immediately provided to the residents in the community and translated into all 27 languages spoken by nearby residents. If this information is not given to community, we intend to utilize public disclosure requests to shine light on the county's lack of accountability. The community, this goes on. How much time do I have?
So you've already, I just got a message that the person who was supposed to be keeping time, we can't hear her, and you've run over.
Okay, I will cut it. I will wrap it up to our current demands. We demand that existing ESJ tools provided in the county's own strategic plan be utilized as it continues its COVID-19 response efforts moving forward, especially in the upcoming stages of this pandemic response here in White Center. If it is impossible to remove them immediately, we ask that King County commit to removing the quarantine modules once the state of emergency or pandemic ends. And White Center residents demand that the folks taken there be treated with the best practices and all necessary staffing resources, including spraying the area, 24-hour case managers, which has already been discussed and appreciated, but we would like an operational plan of who's going to be there and when. Ambulances, of course, and first responders to prioritize those folks in case symptoms escalate quickly. And we would like training for community organizations working closely with the county to inform it in its outreach efforts. Community leaders need to be trained on how to protect themselves and our residents as we produce and disseminate health information that can information to inform residents and business owners. Thank you very much for your time and patience.
Thank you. Before you sign off, can I ask you to say and spell your name one more time? I didn't quite get it the first time. I apologize.
Yes. It's Yen, Y-E-N, last name Baines, B-A-Y-N-E-S. I was the interpreter at the March 10th hearing. Yeah, and I've spoken with you in the past. Thank you again for holding this.
Thank you. And you inspired us to make sure we had an interpreter available today. So thank you for that as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will continue to listen as well. Thank you.
Very good.
Bye.
All right. The next person has a phone number ending in 0794, and I'm unmuting you now. Oh, sorry, I jumped around. Let me find the right number again. There it is, 0794. You're unmuted. Can you state your name, please? Do we have a person ending in 0794?
That's Dembowski.
Oh.
And Dunn. And Dunn is in through me as well. We lost the connection at one point and had to come back in. So if that happens, let us vote later.
Yes, of course. And Madam Clerk, can you take that number and put it back up under participants again?
Yes. What were the last 4 digits?
0794.
Got it.
That's me too. I'm hanging out with Rod Dembowski somehow electronically.
I just moved you both up, I think.
It's a brave new world. Okay. Thank you. And the next person is 7229. Please state your name.
Hello, this is Vanessa Villalobos.
Hi, Vanessa.
Oh.
Thank you. If you would just spell your name and then give your testimony for the record. Thank you so much.
Sure. Vanessa, Vanessa. Last name Villalobos, Villalalob like boy, OS.
Okay, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to put on the record that the opposition to the quarantine site facility still stands, and I am a part of what now is just over 20,000 signing petitioners with a public petition that was presented to the council. So this is still true in the sentiment with all of the organizations. Second point regarding Mr. Joe McDermott's commitment to the community regarding providing medical supplies and a clinic. Nothing has been communicated on this end, which makes it very unnerving for the people and the residents there who are currently learning that there will be a site there. So we would love an update on what is the plan, and for this reason, because the implementation of a proper plan that is safe and is considerate of the potential risks and damages to the community there, I wish to express that I don't believe this site is appropriate to operationalize. And also echoing the letter and the content of the letter that Ms. Yen Baines presented before me. A third point is with the understanding that $10 million is about to be processed for Sheriff's Fund. Unincorporated White Center is currently served by a very small sheriff, and so I would like the council to consider an equitable portion of whatever funds get granted to the sheriff's office, that it includes some criteria for the sheriff or personnel under the sheriff's department to work in consultation and in coordination with the White Center Development Association so that they can be guided as to how personnel can be of service to the community. And lastly, last point, and this is regarding prior comment regarding communication requested to the council via Ms. Callie. Thank you so much for being available to community, Callie. I am an independent contractor as well as an artist, and I would like to recommend for the council not to depend on independent contractors working with relief funding to have the burden of coming up with the communication tools and designs that the council and city should be providing with something like a quarantine site. So I do ask that the communication and the timeliness of the communication to the residents with proper signage and banners be a line item as part of the county's budget and not relief efforts as part of budgets that independent contractors are working with, because we are addressing basic needs of the community like food delivery, rent, and income distribution, trying to brainstorm ways to get that closer to the ground. So please and thank you so much.
Thank you very much for joining us today. The next person's phone number ends in 5431, and I'm unmuting you, trying to unmute you now. Hold on one second. Okay, 5431. Are you there? There's also a 5413, but I think this is 5431. Okay.
Yes.
Hi, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Can you please state your name and spell your name for the record?
Yes, this is Linda Olson, Olson.
All right, Linda, thank you for being with us. Please go ahead and give your testimony.
I would like to comment on the fireworks ban. I've heard others mention safe and sane fireworks and the sales of them in our county. When Maple Valley was looking at a fireworks ban, a resident testified that his wife and young child were at a neighbor's house watching fireworks the year before. A safe and sane firework misfired and came directly at the young child. The mother threw herself on top of the child and received a serious burn covering most of her thigh. I can't imagine what would have happened if she hadn't made it to her daughter in time. The fireworks ban has worked in Maple Valley. It's not perfect, but some neighborhoods are completely fireworks free, and most others have been cut back to almost none. Most of the cities in King County have banned fireworks, and adding unincorporated King County would make a big difference in the impact on injuries, veterans, pets, wildlife, and the environment. I hope that you will move forward with this ban. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person signed up is, in line is, got a phone number ending in 9492. Unmuting you now. Hello, can you state your name at 9492?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Visna Hoy.
Okay. Would you please state your name again? It broke up a little bit.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please state your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Visna Hoy. It's spelled V as in Victor, E-A, S as in Sam, N as in Nancy, A. Last name is Hoy, H-O-Y.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead and give your testimony.
Thank you. I just wanted to share the sentiment and the urgency of the call for removing the quarantine site that is currently in development in White Center. As you all know, there are over 500 residents. Many of them are immigrants, low income, people of color, who are staring outside their window with uncertainty and with fear. I know this is a time of unprecedented decision-making and of incredible public health expediency, but I would like the council members to please take a pause and think about the history of institutional racism and inequity that has really survived in King County. And so the establishment of the ESJ framework was a huge champion for moving equity forward. And this decision to put a quarantine site in the middle of White Center without any consultation, communication with community leaders within White Center is a complete denial of the ESJ framework that was put into place and was honored by King County. So this decision in itself is not only a message to communities of color in King County that equity is not important, but it also puts into jeopardy the lives of those who do not have the resources to protect themselves as would other neighborhoods and communities in King County. And that's not to say that there are many assets within White Center, but looking at it from a ESG lens, being that White Center does not have its own governmental body to advocate for these decisions for its residents, I strongly encourage that council members really take a look at this decision, its history, its impact, and the message moving forward about what does it mean to be a Black and brown person in King County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoy. The next person in line is has a phone number ending in 4593. Just unmuted you. Can you please state your name?
Hi, this is Talia Ringer. I've already spoken.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next person has a phone number ending in 1619. Just unmuted you. 1619.
Hello, it's Pete Hartmeier, Hartmaier.
Thank you so much. Please give your testimony, Mr. Hartmeyer.
I'd like to speak in support of the ban of the fireworks in unincorporated King County. I live in Tuscany neighborhood. I have a Woodinville address, but I'm outside the city of Woodinville. So we're about 200 homes in this area, and we're surrounded and intertwined by trails and NGPE areas. Now, the rules around NGPE, as I understand them, is that you're not allowed to do anything to reduce fuel load or remove any of the brush that's in that. So over the 30 years that the neighborhood has been here, these forests have become more and more saturated with underbrush and so on. And as you all know, naturally occurring forests need to have naturally occurring fires. Of course, that's not going to be allowed in a neighborhood of 200. Now, the other thing is we've got increasingly drier summers. When we moved here 25 years ago, it was a joke. You know, the rain stopped on the 5th of July because it was pouring rain up until then. So this was not an issue. That's not a joke anymore. The rains stop, usually around June, and we've had a number of summers where it is very dry by the 4th of July. I've been an advocate in our HOA to ban them or reduce them in our neighborhood, and they have done so, but yet there still continues to be fireworks in the area. So there's two things that intertwine is. One is either loosen up the NGPE rules to allow us to deload the fire risk or fire fuel loads, or just ban the fireworks completely to prevent the fires in the neighborhood. It is extremely, it's a tinderbox here in the summertime. All right, so that's my testimony. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right. The next person has a phone number ending in 0645. Trying to unmute you. Okay, 0645, are you there? Is there a person with a phone number ending in 0645? Okay. Not hearing anyone. I will mute that again. There were 4 or 5 numbers where I called the person's name out and they didn't speak, and I'm just going to go through them one more time to see if there's anybody still waiting to speak.
You're no longer muted.
346. Is there a person waiting to speak at 1346?
You've been muted.
413. Is there a person waiting to speak at 5413?
That's me. That's Jose Gaetan, the interpreter.
Oh, there you are again. Okay. We're going to have to figure out a better way to identify you.
That's right.
At 4411.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Did you want to speak? And if so, please state your name.
Yes, I do, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ali Warsame.
Would you please spell your name for the record before we start your time? Oh, I'm sorry, you were going to go ahead.
A-L-I, first name, last name W-A-R-S-A-M-E.
Okay, thank you, and I apologize for interrupting you. Please go ahead and give your testimony.
Thank you. I wanted to also share my opposition to the quarantine site in South Center. Every day I'm leaving the house or coming home, I see the site and I just can't help but think about the exposure that could impact that community and the many who don't have resources and are already struggling that could be impacted by this. And I also think that there could be many different locations that the county could choose from that wouldn't put such a risk at this community. And I would ask that the county really think twice about if the ultimate goal is to protect people from contracting this virus, I would ask the county to think what this location could do to that community and those many residents that live there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to try two more. Is there a person at a phone number ending in 6265? 6265? Wait a moment and see if they're muted on their end. Hello, is there somebody at 6265? Okay, we'll move on. And then the last number I have is at 0645. Is there a person waiting to speak at 0645? I know there's somebody there. Okay, that is the end of the list of people that I have called on all of the numbers that I have here, and I want to move back up to the presenter list. We will be done with public testimony now. I'm going to go back. All right. So with that, I think we're done with the public hearing. I want to thank Jose for being with us for the potential for translation. I think we can free you now, and thank you for answering every time I called on you. And we'll move on in our agenda. The first two items are consent items 7 and 8, and I'm going to call on Councilmember McDermott to please move those items.
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, the consent agenda is before us. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Upthegrove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we've passed the consent agenda, and we'll move on.
Madam Chair?
Yes, who's speaking?
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Yes, Von Reitbauer.
Just a question. When you ended public testimony, you did not close public testimony. I assume that the fireworks proposal, if it comes up again, will still be open for those who are worried about due process and public testimony.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer, the item is on for briefing only today, so we would have to have another public hearing at the time of taking action on it, as it is an ordinance, so there will be another opportunity. It might not be the same public hearing, but will be a public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9. One moment, let me get there. All right, this is proposed ordinance number 2020-0063 from the Budget and Fiscal Management Committee, and I will call on the chair of that committee, Councilmember Cole-Wells, to move the item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move proposed ordinance 2020-0063 that would authorize the execution of a new lease to support the operation of the Metro Transit Department.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Did you have anything else you wanted to say up front about the item?
Yes, I would like to do that, Madam Chair. Thank you. The proposed ordinance would authorize a 12-year lease with 2 possible extensions and an option to purchase for the Prologis site, which is located between the King County International Airport and Metro South Campus. Both the airport and Metro will use the site. For the airport, the Prologis site will serve as a runway protection zone, enabling the airport to ensure safety by limiting the uses on the site. And for King County Metro, the Prologis site will allow for the relocation of Metro's training and safety functions away from Metro's South Campus to make room for the new South Annex base. Now, because the two county departments will share use of the site, the lease costs would be proportionately split between them. No appropriation is needed as the capital improvement program adopted with our 2020 budget contained the necessary authority. And there is a technical amendment. Would you like me to move that now or take questions first?
Would you pause for a second, Councilmember? I have asked for each item that we're acting on today if staff would be available to make a brief statement about what is the time sensitivity, because we are trying to be cautious about with the difficulties that have been acknowledged about this meeting format to make sure we're taking up things that have some time sensitivity. And we have Mary Bergen on from Central Staff. I'd ask her if she could just explain that time sensitivity, please.
Thank you, Councilmember. For the record, this is Mary Bergen on from the Council staff, and I'll note that the reason for time sensitivity for this item is that in the technical amendment, Amendment 1, there is a change to the lease signing deadline. It had been originally transmitted as February 28th, a date that has come and gone, and the county and landlord were able to renegotiate a new signing deadline of April 15th. That is the date that is in the new lease that is in the technical amendment. Because of the council's meeting schedule, today would be your last opportunity to vote to meet that April 15th deadline. I think that's it unless there are any other questions.
That answers my question. Council members, does anyone else have a question on this item before we call for the amendment?
Madam Chair?
Councilmember Colwell.
Yes, I just would like to add also that under Amendment 1, there's a legal description added of the rental property to Exhibit D, which had been omitted from the transmitted version.
Okay, very good. Why don't you put Amendment 1 before us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 1.
Thank you, Councilmember Colwell. Council members, any questions on this item? Hearing none, I will call for a voice vote on the amendment. All those in favor of Amendment 1, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. The amendment carries. Any final comments before I call for a roll call on final passage from any members? And then I'll call on Councilmember Colwell to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We know that King County International Airport is one of the busiest general aviation airports in the country, averaging 200,000 takeoffs and landings each year. We want all who use it to be safe. We want to make good use of the property that is involved with this lease to provide space for Metro Transit. I think overall it's been very well worked out, and I recommend that we pass this legislation as amended.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Colwell. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Colwell.
Aye. Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert. Thank you. Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Upthegrove.
Aye.
Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we've adopted proposed substitute ordinance 2020-0063 as amended. All right, item 10 is proposed ordinance 2020-0040, and I'm going to call on Councilmember Dunn, the chair of our Local Services Committee, to put the item before us.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Dunn. Would you like to speak to this or have staff speak to it?
I think just given the remoteness, I think having staff speak to it would be helpful.
Okay. Who do we have on this one?
I'm assuming this is an annexation issue, right?
This is the annexation of land into the Covington Water District, known as the Pacific Raceway annexation.
Yes.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer, do you want to speak to it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Briefly, and I support Councilmember Dunn's remarks. This measure is supported by the local governments in the community, the Covington Water District, and the Pacific Raceways, which is an economic engine for South King County. I urge its adoption.
Okay, and I was going to ask if there was a staff person to speak to this time sensitivity of the two water annexations. I don't see a staff person's name.
Andy.
That would be
Councilmember Andy Miklo is here.
Oh, hi, Andy. Would you please go ahead?
Yes, Andy Miklo. Councilmember, the council action on this item is needed to comply with state law.
Okay, very simple. Thank you for that. Any commentary before we move to a vote?
No, I would just say that, we do these annexations all the time as various water districts begin to increase their size and move their water services out throughout the community. So it's really a ministerial act in your support.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions just before we move into a vote? All right, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Updegrove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, by our vote, we have adopted proposed ordinance. Hold on, scroll down. It's very slow. Proposed ordinance number 2020-0040.
Maytag Kimberly is now exiting.
That's interesting. It's the only one that did that. Okay, we're moving on to proposed ordinance number 2020-0050, and I'm going to call on Councilmember Dunn again to move the item. It's sponsored by Councilmember Lambert.
Yes, Jose, I would like to know, the interpreter would like to know if it's still on.
Okay.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Let's pause for a second. We have some muting.
Jose Gaetano, Spanish interpreter.
Okay.
Is now exiting.
Okay, very good. What we have is people signing off. So it's been moved, and Councilmember Dunn, did you want to say a few words?
I invite Councilmember Lambert, the sponsor, to speak to it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Chair also. This is a removal of 1.5 acres of land from the Sammamish Plateau Water and Sewer District and annexation into the Northeast Sammamish Water and Sewer District, known as the Saramim annexation. Ministerial, as council member said prior, and also I believe there is an amendment.
Okay, would you move the amendment, Madam Councilmember Lambert?
Thank you. I move amendment number 1.
And do you want to describe it or call on staff to describe it?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but what I was told is that this is the attachment that updates the description.
Okay.
You might want to check with staff to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Madam Chair, Andy Miklo, again, from council staff.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
The amendment to this does attach a revised legal description.
Okay, very good. Can you, Andy, also, again, just for purposes of the record, describe why this one is time sensitive?
Yes, this is also, council action is also needed on this to comply with state law.
Okay. Is there a deadline in the state law? Is that the issue?
Yes, their action needs to happen within 60 days of the notice public hearing, and this one, council action needs to occur before April 11th.
Okay. Or what happens?
I would want to consult with legal and get back to you on that, please.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pick on you particularly, Andy, but for the purposes of these meetings, it's going to be really important for us to state on the record why the items are time sensitive and need to move forward. So it would be helpful to know that for future. This one is, as has been said, ministerial, and it's on a timeline already. So any further comments or questions before I call for a vote on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 The amendment carries. Any further discussion on the ordinance as amended? Councilmember Lambert, anything to close?
No, thank you for following through on the ministerial needs of the county.
All right. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
All right. By our vote, we have approved, we have adopted proposed substitute ordinance 2020-0050 as amended. Item 12 on the agenda is proposed ordinance 2020-0109.
Michael Andy is now exiting.
This is the fireworks regulation that we've heard about in public comment. As I've said a couple times, the council is not taking action on this today. We are receiving this briefing to ensure that all members are aware of the content of the legislation and that we have the opportunity to review it and discuss potential amendments before there's public notice. If you have potential amendment ideas and you don't have to raise them today, but please do share them with central staff, which is Jake Tracy, by close of business Friday, March 27th. And Jake Tracy, council staff, is here to provide a briefing. Are you prepared to go out to do that, Mr. Tracy?
Yes, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Please go ahead.
Great. So materials for this item begin on page 237 of your packet. Proposed ordinance 2020-0109 would prohibit the retail sale and discharge of fireworks as defined in state law in unincorporated portions of King County and would establish standards for public displays of fireworks in unincorporated King County. By way of background, Washington State allows for the retail sale of consumer fireworks with a state license and allows persons 18 or older to purchase and use consumer fireworks without the need for a permit or license. Consumer fireworks are defined in state law, and there's a handout in your packet from the Washington State Patrol that shows what is legal and what is not legal under state law. That's on page 245 of your packet. If you're looking in Adobe Acrobat, you will need to rotate the page to see it properly. So if you are an Acrobat, it's easy to rotate it. Just press Control-Shift+, and that will rotate the page for you. And then you can just press Control-Shift- to rotate it back after you're done. But I will describe that here too. So examples of consumer fireworks that are legal for sale in Washington State include Roman candles, reloadable mortars, parachutes, wheels, cone fountains, sparklers, smoke devices, and aerial mine or shell tubes. Trick and novelty devices, such as toy caps, party poppers, and snap and pops, do not meet the threshold for consumer fireworks under state law. Bottle rockets, skyrockets, missiles, and firecrackers are not legal to sell at retail or to use in Washington State except on tribal lands. So those are consumer fireworks. Display fireworks are large fireworks that exceed the requirements in the definition of consumer fireworks. And a public display of fireworks, as the name suggests, is the use of display fireworks at an event the public is or could be admitted to. Such public displays of fireworks require a state license and a permit from the local fire marshal. So those are the state regulations. Cities and counties are allowed to adopt more restrictive regulations than what is allowed by state law, but there's a required 1-year waiting period between adoption of the regulations and the regulations being effective. So this ordinance, as I said, would prohibit the retail sale and the use of consumer fireworks in unincorporated portions of King County. Fireworks could still be sold at wholesale, not direct to consumer, in the industrial zone. The prohibition on discharge and retail sale would not apply to tribal lands. The penalty for violating fireworks regulations would remain a misdemeanor, but the penalty, maximum penalty would increase from $250 a day to $1,000 per day for each day someone violated the fireworks regulations. The proposed ordinance would remove existing regulations that are in the code relating to fireworks, including the standards for retail sale and consumer use, since those would no longer be allowed, and it would move the standards for public displays from Title VI to Title 17 of the county code. As is required today, a permit from the fire marshal would be required for any public display of fireworks, subject to a permit application and review fee. The proposal would remove detailed guidance on application submittal requirements in favor of allowing the fire marshal to determine what should be in that application. The proposed ordinance would also remove detailed technical language and definitions, instead referencing the definitions and requirements in state code and the International Fire Code. Finally, the proposed ordinance would reduce the required staff for a public display from one state licensed operator and one assistant over the age of 18 to one state licensed operator. At this point, I will pause for any questions before discussing the conceptual striker and the proposed schedule for action. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Madam Chair.
I have a question.
Okay, just a moment. Thank you, Jake. And I'm going to first give the sponsor, Councilmember McDermott, an opportunity to say or ask anything he wants to, and then I'll call on. I heard Councilmember Lambert and Councilmember Dunn waiting to ask a question. Councilmember McDermott, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I might suggest that questions about the ordinance as introduced be entertained now, and then we let Mr. Tracy brief on the conceptual striker, and then we have more general conversation about the proposal itself.
Fair enough. Question?
And I say that because I will have a striker, will not be seeking adoption as introduced. And so I'd want members to know more about the conceptual striker at this point in time before we engage in a larger discussion about the policy and ask questions. Because questions might be better addressed to, might be better informed by knowledge of the striker.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Why don't we ask Jake to go ahead and brief the striker, and then we can have questions on any of it and discussion. I think it'll be hard to tease those out. So, Jake, can you go ahead and brief the striker?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as Councilmember McDermott stated, Council staff has been working with the sponsor of the legislation on a conceptual striking amendment. That amendment would remove fireworks display services, also known as public displays of fireworks, from the permitted uses tables and prohibit temporary use permits for public displays of fireworks. So the effect of that change is that under the executive's proposed version, a person could get a firework, or a group could get a public display of fireworks permit for a single property as many days a year as they wanted, as long as they got approved for the fireworks permit. This amendment would limit public displays of fireworks to 2 days per year on any given property. Another change is to reference the state law requirement that public displays of fireworks for religious purposes are not subject to a fireworks permit fee. They are required to get a permit, but the state does not allow them to be charged a fee. So the striker would reference that state law to clarify that they cannot be charged fireworks fees. Additionally, there are technical and clarifying changes to match the executive's intent. And I can also quickly go over the schedule now, or I can save that until after discussion.
Why don't we do discussion and then talk schedule?
Sure.
Okay, so Councilmember McDermott, did you want to say anything else other than to suggest process?
I would. Thank you, Madam Chair. As we heard in public testimony at the beginning of today's meeting, there was a death in White Center related to fireworks last year. And I'm sorry that it took that to be where we are today. But I really do believe that proposing to ban fireworks in unincorporated King County, as is done in the vast majority of incorporated areas throughout King County, is responsible action for us to take. We are local government for unincorporated King County, and for so much of the rest of the county, local government has already taken this step. It's not unusual, and it is high time, because in 2018, there were 30 fireworks-related injuries and 61 fireworks-related fires countywide. And as I said last year, there were 2 fireworks-related deaths in unincorporated King County, including one of my constituents in White Center. Further, as climate change continues to affect our region, the threat of wildfire continues to increase. The horrific 2017 Eagle Creek forest fire in Oregon was caused by a safe and sane smoke bomb, according to news reports. So what we would do is to ban fireworks like 25 neighboring cities, parks, and the national forest lands around King County's unincorporated areas already do. And the reason why a full ban, as opposed to trying to parse out safe and sane or some other distinction, is because a full ban, in conversation with law enforcement and local sheriffs, with sheriff's deputies within King County, provides a much brighter line for enforcement to know that no fireworks are permitted, not address whether a particular firework that one heard was permitted or not. So I know we're not taking action today. I look forward to more conversation with my colleagues about this and with the public, recognizing that all of that is very necessary. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak to it and to make sure it's briefed and discussed in today's meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. I'm going to call on folks with questions. I heard Councilmember Lambert, then Councilmember Dunn, then I'll ask for others. Councilmember Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a number of questions to put on the record. First of all, I wanted clarity on what was just said. It says, is it 2 days per year on individual properties, or is that 2 days per year overall? So I'd like that clarity. Maybe Jake can tell us that after I finish here. And then we didn't talk about it, but in the literature, it talks about needing a pyrotechnic and also a SEPA. So I think we need a little more clarity on, and that's on the beginning of the page 2 of the staff report. So more information about the pyrotechnics and also the SEPA. And then more clarity on public displays, because if people can't do it individually, they're going to be turning to public displays. And so looking to see what kinds of public displays, what the rules will be for that. We have several tribal areas in our county that will be selling these kinds of fireworks potentially. And so how are we going to coordinate with them? And also, I think we need an ESJ on the idea that we would be raising the amount of the fine from $250 a day to $1,000 per day. I don't even know how many felonies have a $1,000 pay fine. So that's a huge, and I think we should be looking at the ESJ implications of that. And then also, lastly, what is the differentiation from moving from Title VI to Title 17? So those are my questions, Madam Chair. And I can get them in writing offline, or if Jake wants to explain that one, is it 2 days per property or 2 days total overall?
Thank you, Councilmember Lambert. I'm happy to answer that. So with the proposed amendment, it would be 2 per property per year. So it wouldn't limit the total number in unincorporated King County. It's just that no property could get more than 2 fireworks permits in any given year.
So as a clarification, Madam Chair, does that mean that I could have my property, I live in a cul-de-sac, there's like 25 of us, so I could get one for 2 days, my neighbor could get one for 2 days, another neighbor could get one for 2 days, which would mean there could be like 40 to 50 days of, depending upon the size of the area, of fireworks?
So technically, that could be the case. I will note that information provided by the executive was, I believe there were 5 public displays of fireworks permitted in unincorporated King County last year. But as the proposed amendment is written, it would be by property, could have up to 2, as opposed to the executives where there's no limit.
Okay, so I think we need to clarify. I don't want fireworks going off every other day for the entire year. So I think we need to clarify.
Okay, we're happy to follow up with you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Dunn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jake, thanks for staffing us. Just so I understand, right now, as I understand the law, from 9 p.m. to midnight, if we don't take action, fireworks are legal. If this ordinance were to pass as it's currently written, and maybe some give and take in terms of how it comes out finally, we move to a situation where a fine would be or at least up to $1,000. I think I heard per day. Am I characterizing that right?
That's correct. So how the code is written is that or how the proposal is written is that it says that it's currently a $250 fine per violation, and each day is a separate violation. So it's changing that to a $1,000 max fine per violation, with each day being a separate violation. Does that make sense?
Can you hear me there? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We can hear you, yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So if the council's going to make a move from banning fireworks from that 9 to midnight place where they have been allowed, it seems to me that since it was legal last year to light those fireworks off, that the next move, unless I'm getting it wrong, would be to provide a ban with a minimal fine. And then maybe the next year you would do a $1,000 fine once people got used to the fact that they've been banned. It just seems like we're jumping up a couple of levels before we're giving a year for an opportunity for people to adjust to what the new law is. So I'm just wondering if I'm reading that wrong.
Did you understand the question, Jake?
Yes, I understood. So you are correct, Councilmember Dunn, that both of these would go into effect at the same time, the ban and the raising of the fine from $250 to $1,000 as it is written.
Okay, so just one obvious call is we could put the ban in place and then go up to this heavier fine, or we could put the ban in place for a year with a lighter fine, with the idea that then a year later you could come back with a heavier fine. But anyway, I'll focus on that a little later, and I appreciate the input at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do other members have questions?
I do, Madam Chair. This is Councilmember Zahalai.
Councilmember Zahalai, please go ahead.
Thank you. First, I want to thank Councilmember McDermott for his leadership on this. I know keeping our communities, especially in unincorporated King County, safe is of paramount importance. And I've also been hearing from many of my constituents in Skyway that they are supportive via email. My only hang-up at this moment is that since I'm new to this position, I haven't had the time to do a proper engagement over there to just get people's feedback. We had a plan set up to have community meetings around this topic, but of course, the world turned upside down in the past couple of months, and that was delayed. I would just be interested in hearing at some point the types of engagement that were done on this topic, the types of meetings that were held before, especially as Councilmember Lambert brought up the equity impact review, just so that just to get more comfortable with it. I definitely have heard on the public safety aspect. I just have not had the time to do a equity impact or economic impact review, and I would love to hear on those topics, Jay, if you're able to provide that information.
I do not have any information on outreach that was done. I believe we have executive staff on the line. Jim Chan from Permitting might be able to speak to that.
Okay, Mr. Chan, please introduce yourself and go ahead if you have anything to add.
Hello, this is Jim Chan, Division Director for Permitting with King County. Can people hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you. In terms of outreach, the draft proposal was put together in sort of an emergency process to get it in front of council for timing purposes. No outreach has been done thus far. We left the outreach as a condition in coordination with council members who sponsored it. The executive side is willing and able to assist and participate in outreach as we move forward.
Madam Chair?
I'm sorry, who was that speaking?
I'm sorry, Councilmember McDermott.
Go ahead, Councilor McDermott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Zahalai and all, I will get more information to you, but this is very much come from constituents over several years, expressing their desire and their need to have some safety, public safety, and safety from wildfires in their communities. Every year I hear from people in Vashon. Every year I hear from people in North Highline, White Center, the unincorporated areas within my district. And this is very much coming out of constituent-driven concern.
Madam Chair?
Okay, hold on one second. I just want to make sure that Councilmember Zahalai got all his questions onto the record before I move on. Councilmember Zahalai?
Yep, those are all my questions, and I have been hearing similar concerns from my constituents as well, Councilmember McDermott. So thank you for sharing that.
Very good. Councilmember Colwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question relating to enforcement. Has the county ever been able to enforce a fireworks fine? And do the sheriff's deputies write tickets, or how would this work? Thank you.
This is Jake. I'll have to defer to Jim on that. Jim Chan.
Absolutely. This is Jim Chan again. To our knowledge and to our history of how enforcement on fireworks has been done, it's very difficult to enforce firework regulations, given the time of day or time of evening that it happens, and also the volume of potential violations. So to my knowledge, we have not issued a fine from the enforcement point of view on any violations. It would be difficult to do so in current conditions. The proposed ordinance itself would lend itself to much potentially easier way to enforce by the enforcement agencies, given that it's an all-out ban throughout unincorporated King County rather than certain jurisdictions, certain borders. Very difficult when certain jurisdictions allow them and certain jurisdictions do not, trying to figure out the borders and where they're being discharged.
Thank you. And may I continue, Madam Chair?
Please go ahead, yes.
Thank you. This may be an obvious one, but so if this ordinance were to pass and go into law, would the sheriff's deputies likely go around to the unincorporated areas and just on like 4th of July night and watch for fireworks? So is that how it would work for enforcement?
So the jurisdictions and the fire services and the sheriff's offices that we've spoken with, they go all out on the night of the 4th. They staff up. They have everybody out in the community to enforce fireworks discharge. It's an all-out advance on that night. However, it still remains extremely difficult for them to identify and take enforcement action. They're there to educate. They're there to prohibit the extreme grievances. If there are massive displays of illegal fireworks, they'll try to stop those. But on a case-by-case basis, it is still very difficult to enforce.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Are we?
I have the question later. Did you want me to speak?
Oh, yes, please. I'll go after you if Madam Chair allows.
Okay. I think I may have lost her, so I will. Thank you, Council Member. Could we have, when this is coming back in the amended form, could we have clarity on, a group of 50 sponsors or 100 sponsors could do a community display? All the cities have access to doing community displays, although the language currently is not very clear about even the cities. But because we don't have well, I guess it would be us, but I think the rules need to be clear on what size group could be able to do that. And I'm glad that we had a speaker earlier that talked about fire concerns, because that has been one of my concerns also. But who could do it, how many people, how long, so that there's more clarity on what what is possible. The earlier speaker also talked about, as well as Mr. Chan, talking about the overwhelmingness of trying to enforce this is a problem. And secondly, the fact that this has gone on as a sort of tradition in our country, that I believe that if we're going to ban individuals from doing it, that public displays are going to be even more important. So where could they be held where it's safe, and what are the limited hours, and how many people would need to be sponsored, so we have more clarity in what we're bringing forth so that people aren't left confused. Thank you.
Thank you. I heard Councilmember Zahalai wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to build off of Councilmember Colwell's point about law enforcement as well. I would love it if there's a way for us to get a written protocol from the sheriff's office on how they deal with fireworks if this ban were to be put in place, just because anytime we're increasing engagement between communities and law enforcement, I would love some kind of consistency and making sure that things don't escalate, especially if this is a new law being put into place. And going back to Councilmember Dunn's point about slowly ramping this up, as opposed to maybe this coming 4th of July, if people aren't aware of the changes and suddenly there are sheriffs enforcing laws that they didn't know before, we just need to be careful about that. And I would love to see in writing some kind of protocol or system in place for enforcement.
Councilmember Zahalai, I'm happy to follow up with the sheriff's office and get back to you on that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Councilmember Von Reichbauer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank all the members, Junico Wells, Ramai, and Kathy Lambert in particular, for the questions they raised, because there were some of the issues that came to mind. I greatly respect my colleague from the 8th District, because I own property on Vashon Island, and I'm pleased that he had a large reach out for his district. Unfortunately, this is going to apply county-wide, not just to the 8th District, and I'm very concerned about the opportunity to hear from nonprofits, organizations, and people throughout King County who will be affected, and see a law that's been in effect for 30 years change just because one council member had meetings in his district.
Okay, is that your comment, Councilmember?
Amen.
Okay. Any other council members like to speak or ask questions before we turn towards next steps and schedule?
Yeah, one thing, just for the good of the order here, and
Councilmember Dunn.
for your information.
Councilmember Dunn.
Thank you for recognizing me, Madam
I'm
Chair.
not recognizing you. I'm asking you to pause for a second.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Dunn, go ahead.
Got it. Thanks, Mr. Madam Chair. Jake, just for your own information, 2 years ago, I was able to get about 500 hours of additional police service and patrol service dedicated to the sheriff's office for 4th of July patrols to enforce the restrictions we had, which included the different types of fireworks. Some were legal, some weren't, and also the hours 9 to midnight. And what I was told by the sheriff's office is, well, thank you very much for the additional hours, but we won't be putting any additional bodies in place because it's the 4th of July weekend and folks are taking their leave and they're not going to be there. So I think, if we are going to move forward with a change in policy, the sheriff's office needs to be brought in to determine what they can and cannot do in terms of their ability to enforce whatever rules are put forth by the council.
Okay, I heard one other member also trying to speak. Was that Councilmember Dembowski?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of points and then maybe a question or two. We've got at least 1,000 diagnosed cases of COVID-19 in the county right now, and we're around maybe 100 deaths. We're barely getting through this meeting, as much preparation as you have done, which is appreciated. Our staff is scattered remotely. We cannot reach out effectively and have dialogue with constituents. We've had a recitation of a number of series of county code that would have to be changed. This is a law that's been in place for, I think, 3 decades. And I just need to and want to go on the record saying, with the crisis we're facing fiscally at the county, with our transit division being just decimated, with the public health crisis, we have now spent close to 45 minutes on this, and there's more time. I believe that it would be appropriate to engage in this serious policy question when we've tackled the crisis at hand. And I respect the difficulty that we all hear, or more some of you more than others during the 4th of July period, the legitimate concerns about the setting off of fireworks and their dangers. Those are real concerns and complaints. But our world just changed in the last month. And this council, I think, would be better serving our constituents if we turned to and tackled some of those major issues. All of our committees have been stood down. We have limited time and limited resources. So with respect to this important issue and the maker of it, maybe we could defer action to when we've got a government that's more capable and engaged and able to thoroughly analyze it and with the nuances and details it deserves. That's my respectful request. Mm-hmm. Second, turning to the merits of it, two or 3 points. Number one, as some of you know, I think all of you know, I typically vote against raising fines. Councilmember Lambert will recall my amendment to eliminate the executive's proposed increase in fines for parking violations in the rural area and other fines, including in the urban area, because I just have believed that we should not pile on to folks. This ban, with respect to the urban areas that it covers, affects some of the most disadvantaged communities in the county, and what it would do by increasing fines and penalties in a criminal sense is increase the interaction with law enforcement and the adverse consequences to those who could least afford it. I've got real concerns about that from a philosophical, fundamental perspective. I don't think it's the right direction to go. Bigger picture on bans, I think Seattle bans fireworks. I'll tell you, every 4th of July and the week up to it and a few days after and New Year's, and on an occasion a Super Bowl win when we had those, and maybe someday a Mariners championship, we have fireworks. And I just question the efficacy of the proposed policy response to the problem that we have. And I would wonder if we had more time to work in our traditional ways if we couldn't come up with a better response. So that's kind of my thinking on it today, where we are given the current crisis we're in. I would ask our staff if this is going to be continued to be brought forward in the near term with respect to jurisdictions in King County that are of significant size. For example, the city of Seattle, perhaps Bellevue, perhaps Kent if they have it. What has been what is the status of the law in those jurisdictions? Has the law been effective? How many citations are issued? How many complaints are received? I'd like some empirical data to assess in jurisdictions that have implemented this policy its efficacy. Thank you.
Okay. I think that part of Councilmember Dombowski's comments flow naturally into a discussion of the timeline and the timeline drivers. So I'm going to call on Jake at this point to talk about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I mentioned, there is a 1-year waiting period between the time that this would be adopted at council and can go into effect. That's something that's required by state law. So there is that 1-year waiting period for these to go into effect. And this legislation does require a public notice and comment period under the State Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA. And so amendment concepts to be included in the hearing notice and to go into that SEPA notice should be communicated to council central staff, that's me, no later than this Friday, March 27th, to be included in that notice. And with that notice going out on that timeline, that would allow for maximum processing time so that this would be effective for the fireworks season in 2021. June 28th, 2021 is when the 2021 season begins for sales. So if the members wanted this to be in effect for June 28th, 2021, it would need to be passed in council no later than June 2nd of this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've thoroughly briefed this item, and that's all it's on for today's briefing. So I would like to move on in our agenda at this point.
Madam Chair?
Councilmember McDermott, would you like to say something before we move on?
Ever so briefly, yes. Mr. Tracy just spoke to the 12-month delay that speaks to why we're still discussing this in our current circumstance, because under no circumstances will fireworks be banned in unincorporated King County this July 4th. Our action by June 2nd as a council would set us up to do that by July 4th of next year, so more than a year from now. And I think a key part of how this would be successful and have a strong impact in the communities that feel a very concentrated effect of fireworks today is through a public education campaign. And I bring that up in response to some of the questions and issues that Councilmember Colwell's raised regarding law enforcement and enforcement. The benefit of a total ban is, as I said earlier, a bright line and not nebulous what's legal and what isn't. And I would expect that this would be complaint-based. As Councilmember Dunn mentioned, he, with my support, have appropriated additional funds for law enforcement on the 4th of July regarding fireworks, knowing what impact they have in our communities, and that isn't sufficient. A ban accompanied with a public education campaign to communicate that to people over the more than year it would be before we had a 4th with the ban in place, I think would serve people in unincorporated King County well. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to items 13, and that is a proposed ordinance relating to service of process on the county during the emergency. Councilmember McDermott, would you move that and put it before us?
I move adoption of ordinance 2020-155.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to speak to it just a little bit. This is one of a couple of proposals that I've brought forward today to address how the legislative branch operates during the COVID-19 emergency. One of the things that we have learned from this emergency is that one of the very few reasons why we must have staff physically in the courthouse is that we have a role to receive service of process for people who are seeking to make claims against King County. That's our job, to receive those. So we have had, until a few days ago actually, we had clerks and others in the office to be there in case somebody decided under the circumstances to drop off service of process. Given the public health orders that we've been under, and especially the governor's order last night that dramatically limits public comment, and given the severe urgency of the COVID-19 epidemic, I wanted to take action to protect the health of our staff and to help slow the spread of COVID-19. What this ordinance would do will allow the clerk to receive process service via email or by regular mail. This option can only be exercised after a proclamation of emergency, and we have one of those in place already, and it will automatically terminate when the emergency is over. And that is the purpose for bringing this forward. So I don't know if anybody else wants to speak to it or if there are questions. We do have Monique Cohen, our legal counsel, available for questions. So I'll pause there and ask if anyone wants to ask anything about this. And I want to warn people, I muted everybody who was unmuted a minute ago because there was some background noise. So if you're trying to speak, I might have muted you. All right, I'm not hearing any questions. Therefore, I will ask the clerk to go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
He's muted. Yeah, everyone's muted. Let's unmute people.
Great idea.
I'm unmuting people now. And then we're gonna pause for a second to see if maybe folks had questions. Okay, does anybody have any questions now that I'm unmuting folks? All right, Madam Clerk, please go ahead and call the roll.
Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove. Councilmember Up the Grove. Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 8 ayes and Councilmember Up the Grove excused.
All right. He's still with us.
Yep.
Perhaps just for some reason stepped away. Okay, give me a moment and then I will. All right, so by our vote we have adopted. Oh, Up the Grove votes aye. Excellent.
The vote is now 9 ayes, 0 noes.
Excellent. By our vote, we have adopted proposed ordinance 2020-0155. That brings us to proposed ordinance number 2020-0157. Councilmember McDermott, would you put that before us?
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. I want to speak to this one as well, if I may, and that is this is an ordinance amending our King County Council rules in response to the emergency declaration. It has been necessary to cancel committee meetings during this emergency, at first just because we didn't have a good way to convene meetings safely, and also to focus efforts and reduce stress on staff and members so that we could find a way to actually proceed with our business. But it's become very clear in the 2 weeks since we had meetings that the council does need a forum to do a few things, to receive briefings from the executive branch on efforts to fight the epidemic and to discuss and plan response and recovery efforts. And I know that several folks on the council have had some priorities that they have been working on to try to do our part, especially in the zone of economic response and recovery, because the efforts that we are all going through right now to prevent the spread of disease are very harmful economically on our constituents, families, businesses, etc. So this proposal would stand up the committee of the whole. It would move the committee of the whole meeting to Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, alternating with the full council, and it includes statements adding to the jurisdiction of committee of the whole to focus primarily, yes, of course, the dog wants to have a say on this one too, to focus primarily on epidemic response and recovery efforts. So what we would do is we would plan for a meeting each Tuesday afternoon at the same time. First week, 1 week would be committee, the next week would be full council. It would enable us to advance our work. To Councilmember Dembowski's comments a little earlier, it would enable us to take actions on items that are critically important in our work as a county to respond to this situation. I'll add, just as a way of detail, if this passes and if we act in this way, the initial cadence won't be perfect because we have got some hangover legislation that is tied to lengthy public noticing periods that in order for that to move forward, we have to have a council meeting on April 14th, which would have been also our first meeting back from recess. Oh, by the way, I've neglected to mention perhaps that this action will also cancel. We have two actions. One of them will cancel our recess because we're all home and we can participate by phone. And so that notice can't be changed. And so what the plan is that we will meet today in council, obviously, in COW, Committee of the Whole, on the next 2 consecutive Tuesdays, then in full council on April 14th. And then after that, it'll be a straight up alternating weeks for the duration of the emergency. The ordinance also removes the planned recess for our, as I said that, for our DC trip and spring break. So as with the item we just voted on service of process, this change will terminate immediately when the emergency is over and Cowan Council would return to their normal schedules. And of course, we could take action if we find ourselves with more capacity and more need to have meetings. We could take action to increase the number and cadence of meetings once we get our feet under us a little bit. So that is my proposal to you all. Colleagues, Jeff Mumm on council staff is available for questions, and I will pause there and ask if anyone has any questions. Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Jeff Mumm.
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
Just to clarify, the jurisdictional change that you talked about for the committee of the whole is actually item 33 on the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, there are two items, and I wasn't super clear about which changes were in which one. Thank you for that clarification. Questions? All right. I would urge your support, and I'm going to ask the clerk to go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Upthegrove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
All right. So, one moment. Okay, by our vote, we've adopted proposed ordinance 2020- where is it now? 0157. All right, our next items are hearing examiner consent agenda, items 15 through 23, and I'm going to ask the clerk to please read these into the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 15 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2019-0342, concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by John Hanson and LaDonna Hanson for property in Maple Valley. Item 16 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2019-0343, concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by Rihanna Kanzeg-Burt and Chad Burt for property in Enumclaw. Item 17 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2019-0344, concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by Ryan Pellet for property in Maple Valley. Item 18 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2020-0008, concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by Tom and Cheryl Lyman for property in Vashon. Item 19 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2020-0010, concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by Chitan Raj Nanjund Gowda and Youngju Park for property located in Issaquah. Item 20 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2020-0011, concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by Margaret Smith and Richard Lipke for property in Vashon. Item 21 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2020-0012, concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by Jennifer and Eric Johnson for property in Issaquah. Item 22 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2020-0014, concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, that the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by Anthony and Ann Pear for property located in Duval. And item 23 is proposed substitute ordinance number 2020-0015, an ordinance concurring with the recommendation of the hearing examiner to approve, subject to conditions, the application for public benefit rating system assessed valuation for open space submitted by Jason and Jessica Paulson for property located in Enumclaw.
Okay. Councilmember Dembowski, would you put those items before us?
Move adoption, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. The hearings examiner consent agenda is before us. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert. Councilmember Lambert?
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott?
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove?
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer?
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you. The consent agenda passes. Next item is consent item number 24. Madam Clerk, would you please read that into the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 24 is proposed motion number 2020-0021, acknowledging receipt of the Department of Local Services Strategic Information Technology Plan.
Councilmember McDermott.
I move adoption of the consent agenda.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
So,
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Colwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we've adopted proposed motion 2020-0021. And this brings us on to item 25. Madam Clerk, would you please read that into the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 25 is proposed motion number 2020-0131, requesting that the King County Council, in consultation with the executive, identify and create volunteer opportunities for the general public to respond to the COVID-19 outbreak.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Dunn.
I move proposed motion 0031.
All right, that is before us. I will say, just as a matter of logistics, that we have an email I hope you all received that is our green folder email, and that has documents that are related to the topics that were not in the packet inside it in PDF format. So, Councilmember Dunn, why don't you go ahead and speak to the item? Councilmember Dunn?
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now, yes.
Okay, great. As you know, we were in the middle of a very significant pandemic. Early on, I announced what I thought was an important program, a need for a volunteerism program or project in the form of a website that would direct individuals and groups and people to ways in which they can volunteer their energies, their efforts, their enthusiasm, their professional expertise in ways that can help our community come out of this. During that time, for lots of different reasons, including our inability to meet and a request from the executive that they were too busy to work on something like this. My staff and I did a lot of work, and the idea would be that the county council would essentially host a website. It would be called Project CARE, Coronavirus Action and Response Enlistment, and it would showcase a lot of different various opportunities that folks could engage in ways to help their community. Importantly, they wouldn't be ways that would further sicken the community in any way, and they wouldn't be ways that would somehow get in the way of our existing first responders or other public health folks. So Project CARE is a little bit different than some of the little existing platforms that have popped up since I rolled out this idea, including the county's regional donation connector and the United Ways volunteer website, two sites that have come online since I announced this that are interesting and very useful websites. It's important that we do our best for the community, but also we don't want to be redundant. So, first of all, the existing platform, which is the county's regional donation center, which some of you, Councilmember Lambert mentioned, it's a very good start. But frankly, I don't think it's nearly thorough enough in terms of representing a broad need across our region to cover some areas. That links to the public. It links the public to the Seattle Foundation for donations and to the United Ways volunteer opportunity list and the list of volunteer opportunities there. I looked through the United Ways volunteer website, and most of those volunteer opportunities appear ultimately, if you get down through them, to be requests for donations. and it links King County employees to the existing giving program. And the donation connector offers a form that businesses can fill out to offer donations or nonprofits to ask for donations. And time will tell how effective this resource is. And it's a good start, to be sure. But the more I've been researching the need in our county, the more overwhelming those needs are and the more broad-based they are. I think there are a lot more opportunities we can highlight besides what we are currently promoting to the two websites I just mentioned. One thing that particularly concerns me is the existing platform is more of a facilitator than a comprehensive resource, and it places the burden on nonprofits to find our website, create an account affirmatively, and mutually list their need, or on businesses to do the same to advertise what they can donate. So my vision skips that step of having to list an advertisement by putting the community directly in touch with needs that we list ourselves. So Project Care, this is what it is. What I'm envisioning is a comprehensive one-stop shop to connect people with many ways to give back to their community. That's because many people want to help. They really are at home wanting to help. But making this information as accessible as possible will certainly better empower them to do that. And there is an added benefit that when we put this website together ourselves, we can choose to highlight what we see as the highest priority needs in the county. And that means things that pop up right at the last minute that we can add in where some of these other websites couldn't be as nimble. There are just a few needs that we have identified as we looked at it. First, donations. Donations not just of money, but also to food banks across the county who have seen their donations massively dwindle as folks have been, in some cases, hoarding supplies. The Bloodworks Northwest and the Red Cross, who have also seen their supplies dwindle, to Mary's Place, who needs things like bedding and sheets. We can list those. To West Baby and Eastside Baby Corner, for example, folks need more diapers, and we've heard a lot about that from Joe's leadership in the past. There's also a small business relief fund that we could be highlighting that would help them survive this economic downturn, in addition to some of the programs that the SBA has been moving forward. So the list goes on. These needs are perhaps less obvious to the public, but still urgent. And so there are ways to serve our community. My next page here. Sometimes people need a nudge to reach out to their neighbors to offer support. And there are things a whole lot of people can be doing from home. About a week ago, we pivoted our effort to focus on the idea that we would have a public stay-at-home order. Things like wellness checks on seniors, things like creating hygiene kits, things like supporting local businesses and donating directly to hospital workers who have lost their jobs and their paychecks. In addition, other volunteer needs could also be highlighted through this Project Care. Retired healthcare professionals who could go back to work and help out as volunteers in this crisis, meal prep and delivery on various fronts through some of the other programs like Meals on Wheels. Something as simple as sewing medical masks and gowns. There's a Boy Scout group trying to get their Eagle Scout certification has reached out to me and want to start doing that. Pro bono legal assistance. Even recently today, Rod Dembowski forwarded to me a request by the mayor of Woodinville that all the plant starts up at Molbox have been sold out as people rush to try and get food supplies for the potential food shortage. Something folks could do from their home as simple as planting seeds and getting food starts to grow in their windowsills and their garages that we could donate. So you may be wondering what the value is of making this level of effort to engage the community. I want to emphasize that there is tremendous power in bringing people together, creating a common thread, and a shared burden of getting through this together. I think Project Care on a website like this does this. It's an opportunity for us to be inclusive in our effort and to let people know that their actions matter and that there's more for them to do besides simply sitting at home. So that's my initial pitch, and be delighted to entertain any other discussion. I would note just in final, this is not an ordinance. This is simply a motion urging the council to look at this and come back within a few weeks on how best we could put together a website that includes a lot of the areas we talked about and a lot of areas we didn't. I sent forward about a 6-page sort of flesh out of what I think it could look like, but I'm very eager to touch base with each and every one of you to see that the things you care about are included as well.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Questions? So I'll start. I have a question about, I don't doubt the value of an effort like this, and we've talked about it, Councilmember Dunn, a few times. I think it's absolutely true what you said about the power of all of us and the fact that we've got a lot of people sitting at home, and this coordination kind of effort is clearly quite valuable because right now there's just a ton of messages, social media communications, various different efforts to organize people to help each other. The question I have always had is, why is King County government the right people to do a website? Like, why wouldn't a nonprofit or one of our tech companies, why wouldn't they be better suited or better placed to create this quickly, easily, comprehensively? Why is it a King County function? And let me say this, as I've been thinking about what is King County going to do as we start to think about response and recovery, we have people who have lost income. We have people who have lost healthcare access. We have people whose businesses, small businesses, are closing, or and all kinds of economic stress and strain, in addition to the health challenges that we're very familiar with. And we also are facing the very strong likelihood that our county resources are going to be tested in a way that we have not experienced previously. We're going to see an immediate short-term drop in revenue associated with the social distancing and the lack of activity that's going on out there. At the same time, we have a major increase in spending for response to the epidemic itself, and we'll ultimately, hopefully, see most or all of that reimbursed. But that is an expectation at this point, not a reality. And then there's the very high likelihood that all of this helps to push us into the next global recession, which we were overdue to have anyway. And so we might see ourselves 18 months, 2 years from now, still looking at dramatically reduced circumstances. And I say all this not because I think your website proposal is going to cost a lot of money, but because as we start to stand up our activities and think about how the county fits in and what we do in order to support the federal government, the state government, and city governments, all of which have far more flexible and larger revenue sources than we do, I'm going to be asking these kinds of questions like, let's not duplicate other people's efforts. Let's do the things that only we can do or that we can do best. And let's keep our eye always on not winning the immediate recovery, but then losing the recovery war long term because we run out of money and have drastically reduced government services. So all of that circle back is, why is this a King County thing to do? What makes us most well placed?
I appreciate that. Unlike other disasters that have occurred nationally across the country over the years, this one is largely one that is requiring state and local responses. And we all know how hard it is to get information from the executive's office right now, from the public health department, because they are so busy. But we, together, get better information, more clear information than the United Way or other nonprofits get, because we have access to the decision makers on a regular basis. You, for example, Joe, have talked to the head of public health. I've talked to the vice president in person and the head of the CDC. We're in a position to get information more quickly than nonprofit organizations, and we are the government, so we have an opportunity to put information out on the website that is done first and foremost, and also do it in a way that actually can promote legitimate, tested, scientific public health strategies. And so while I am all in favor of the United Way and so very supportive of what they've done. And our emergency response department over there in Dow's shop and the Renton facility, also all good. But we are really the very closest group of elected decision makers, and so we could put stuff up online. But I'm not trying to say we're trying to eclipse any of those websites or to suggest that some of those websites aren't doing duplicative efforts. But when it comes to getting messages out to the public, harnessing the good graces of the 2.4 million people who live in King County, we are closest to the decision makers as possible, and we do have the ability, I think, to put together a relatively cheap, ineffective, and effective website that we can then promote more fully. I wouldn't suggest this thing needs to last for 18 months. I think it's more in the short term. It's sort of a 3 to 6 month kind of website. But folks at home who want an idea of where they can go, or if you're the United Way running the United Way website or some of the other nonprofits, this is one of 2 or 3 websites you're going to want to check for the most up-to-date information. And that's why I think we should be the ones to at least be doing some kind of a website.
Okay, thank you for answering my question. Any other questions?
Just one.
Councilmember Lambert.
Thank you. So when I talked with Councilmember Reagan this morning, so I would like his clarification. There would be no extra cost because our staff would handle it in part of their regular workload. Is that correct?
Well, that's what I'm hoping. You saw that the document, the striker, even things like the release. We did that just my team, working from home. We were able to put that all together. So yeah. I mean, if my staff could handle it, I'd do it, and I could even roll it out on my own, but I just think we'd get a better work product if all of us, if we identified a couple of central staffers that could sort of be the lead point. And then as each of us in our own districts have, issues that are close to our heart that we really think should be included, it gives us a central go-to person that can then add that in and update the website. So that's my thought.
Dembowski.
Okay, Councilmember Dembowski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councilmember Dunn, for bringing this forward, and Councilmember Balducci for your questions. One question I had, I recall, I think at our last meeting, Councilmember Balducci brought forward legislation to allow for donations to the county in support of our work to respond to the COVID-19 emergency, and kind of hybridizing that concept here with yours, Councilmember Dunn. Under your motion, would it be possible, not many, but would it be possible to partner with a third party, a nonprofit or private sector provider to either help build and or run the website?
Yeah, I would love a public-private partnership on it. I mean, I think you also maybe saw the $27 million that was raised by the All in Seattle website. There's going to be a number of these. I think the county ought to control one of them, and we can link over to those various groups and refer that back and forth. But yeah, if we can use a public-private partnership, that would be really, really useful in terms of saving costs, and you get a better work product.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I want to, if I can, just take a moment to see what I'm observing in the community, and that is a lot of sites using, say, the Facebook platform popping up, Shoreline Giving, and you track that, and I think you're all seeing this in your communities where folks could use a neighbor to go to the grocery store because they're elderly or immunocompromised, and people are volunteering to do that. Or somebody's spouse needs an N95 mask that doesn't have one at work. People are bringing that. And so I think that this idea has some merit and could be developed. It may be a hot spot of information or maybe not, but I've gotten really good feedback in sending out a terrific compilation of just factual information and opportunities for help that our communications people have put together for us. I want to give them a huge shout out. They have been tremendous. I mean, just tremendous. 7 days a week, timely, and I've gotten feedback like never before on how helpful that is. And so I think we've got a little infrastructure built up at the county council. We could relieve some pressure from the rest of the government that's focused on response, and I'm willing to give this a shot with Councilmember Dunn's kind of leading the charge on it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? I heard there was a striker, and I don't know that we have the amendment in front of us. Councilmember Dunn?
Yeah, there is a striker that makes some technical corrections to what was initially put forward. That should be in your green packet.
It is.
Okay, so I'd move S1.
Okay, S1 is before us. Councilmember Dunn?
Oh boy. Is there somebody on staff there that can take a look at how that S1 difference?
Yeah, we have Tillery Williams on the line. Tillery, are you there?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
So if approved, this amendment would recognize COVID-19 as a pandemic as of March 11, 2020. It would require the council to identify both donation and volunteer opportunities, not only for the general public, but also for King County employees, private businesses, and nonprofit organizations to assist their communities and the county in this response to COVID-19. It would direct council staff to identify centralized communication resources for informing the public. And lastly, if stood up, it would require council staff to provide a briefing to this council no later than 21 calendar days and a written report no later than 28 calendar days after the passage of this motion.
Okay. Any questions on
the only thing I would add, thank you very much for that briefing. And I put those dates are pretty far out, 21 and 28. I don't know where we're going to be in the world in 21 and 28, but I would certainly be willing to work really hard to see and help central staff to see if we couldn't make that timeline a little quicker, but I would follow the chair's lead on what is convenient for her and for our meetings.
It's a little hard to take the details in orally for me. I need to read things, and I don't have that up in front of me right now, so I don't know what you're asking, Councilmember Dunn. Go ahead.
Nothing. I'm just explaining why the deadlines say 21 and 28 days out.
Okay. So, all right. I understood the gist of the striking amendment. Any other questions on the striking amendment? All right. All those in favor of S1, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is amended. Is there a title amendment?
Yes.
Councilmember Dunn, would you move the title amendment?
Move T1.
All right. T1 is before us. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right. On final passage, any comments before I call on Councilmember Dunn to close? Any other members want to speak to this? Okay, Councilmember Dunn to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Look, this is a clearinghouse website to suggest a lot of different good ideas that people can be engaged in, and it's going to dovetail with some really outstanding work the community has already done. I don't want this thing to be some huge gargantuan program and take up a lot of time, but I think it's a start, and we may find that as new initiatives, new things pop up that we want to be engaged in to help our community, that this might be a useful platform to be able to put that on a website link of some kind. So I'd love to give it a shot, and if it doesn't work, if it doesn't get a lot of traffic, we can always do something else. But I think it's a good start and sends the right message that the county is engaged in this sort of thing.
Okay. With that closing statement, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Updegrove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we've adopted proposed motion 2020-0131 as amended. If there's no objection, I would like to take one consent vote on items 26 through 31, which are appointments to the Flood Control Zone District Advisory Committee. And I'm going to ask the clerk to read those items into the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 26 is proposed motion number 2020-0132, confirming Carol Benson, Mayor, City of Black Diamond, as an alternate member of the King County Flood Control Zone District Advisory Committee, representing the Sound Cities Association. Item 27 is proposed motion number 2020-0133, confirming Henry Sladek, Mayor, City of Skykomish, as a member of the King County Flood Control Zone District Advisory Committee, representing the Sound City Association. Item 28 is proposed motion number 2020-0134, confirming Karen Moran, Mayor, City of Sammamish, as a member of the King County Flood Control Zone Advisory Committee, representing the Sound Cities Association. Item 29 is proposed motion number 2020-0135, confirming Leanne Geyer, Mayor, City of Pacific, as a member of the King County Flood Control Zone District Advisory Committee, representing the Sound Cities Association. Item 30 is proposed motion number 2020-0136, confirming Linda Johnson, Council Member, City of Maple Valley, as an alternate member of the King County Flood Control Zone District Advisory Committee, representing the Sound Cities Association. And item 31 is proposed motion number 2020-0137, confirming Michelle Hogg, Council Member, City of Duval, as a member of the King County Flood Control Zone District Advisory Committee, representing the Sound Cities Association.
Councilmember McDermott, would you put those items before us?
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll on the consent agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Upthegrove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
Now, by our vote, we've adopted proposed motions number 2020-0132, 133, 134, 135, 136, and 137. And we will move on. Take me a minute to get there. Okay, item 32 is proposed motion number 2020-0154. Madam Clerk, would you read that into the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 32 is proposed motion 2020-0154, acknowledging receipt of COVID-19 plan for isolation, quarantine, and recovery sites.
All right, Councilmember Upthegrove.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of the motion.
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Lambert, one moment, please. Is it a point of order?
Yes.
What's your question?
Since we have 508 pages online, could you tell us what page we've skipped to now?
I'm on the agenda, item number 32. I have not gone to the page, but if you click on it on your screen, it should take you there.
Actually, it doesn't, which I was surprised because it's supposed to.
Page 359.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Upthegrove to speak to the item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At our last meeting, the council passed a motion that directed the executive to provide the county council in writing the plans for security services and transportation at our isolation, quarantine, and recovery sites. And that is what is before us. Our acceptance of it today is not we're not asked to approve it. They're not asked to, doesn't mean we agree or disagree with everything in it. We're acknowledging that they've provided that to us. And if I could say a couple words about the underlying, the reasoning for this is the Seattle-King County Public Health Department, as you know, we all know, is rapidly deploying sites around the county for isolation, quarantine, and recovery. And I think as of now, there are 7 sites. We have White Center, Kent, Bellevue, Issaquah, and 3 in Seattle. And our public health experts tell us much more capacity is urgently needed. Public health has identified a need for 3,000 additional beds total in King County. And I can't emphasize enough that the deployment of these sites is critical to protect public health and safety. And without deploying them, we have the risk of more people dying. The purpose of these sites is, with this disease spreading through the community, as you know, imagine this: if you have a coworker who is sick, and you're at the risk of being exposed, you're supposed to stay home for 14 days. But some people can't go home because they have a vulnerable family member at home, or some people don't have homes. Likewise, if you get sick and call the hospital, if your symptoms aren't real serious, they will simply have you stay home. But not everyone can stay home. And all the public health experts have said the greatest risk we have right now to safety and lives is the risk that our hospital system becomes overwhelmed. So these sites provide a safe, comfortable place for people to isolate, to quarantine, or to recover when they are unable to do so at home. An important point I want to make that we haven't discussed much. Epidemiologists right now, or at least based on their predictions, we likely already have, and we certainly will in the immediate future, people who are infected in every neighborhood and every community who are isolating at home. So having somebody voluntarily isolate in one of these facilities instead of at home puts our community at no greater risk. If someone were not in one of these facilities, that means they would be at home with no supervision, no security, no restrictions on movement. And so it's important to realize these facilities don't put communities at risk. However, the opposite is true. If we fail to deploy these, our community is put at risk because vulnerable family members risk exposure and because we will have people moving throughout our community, increasing the exposure to the virus and adding to the burden on our hospitals. So that's why this is important. That being said, this motion does put into writing to formalize the security measures, the services and transportation plans at these sites. Communication has been bumpy around some of the sites, and I think that's understandable because this is not a normal process. Communication is taking place during and after the deployment because the deployment is so urgent. But hopefully having this in writing allows us a document to share and allows a central place for people to get information. So thank you I'll get off my my soapbox and ask for your support.
Madam Chair.
Dembowski.
Lambert.
Did we lose Madam
Sorry,
Chair?
you all. Sometimes I get muted. Councilmember Dembowski followed by Councilmember Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and sorry, Kathy, for jumping ahead of you there. I know you were first. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Rutherford for bringing this amendment forward on the last budget cycle. I want to have a slight correction to his remarks. I think we have 2 in Seattle and 1, the biggest one, in Shoreline.
My bad.
Yep, that's okay. I appreciate it, Dave. And I want to say that having been a part of citing that last Monday, going up there with Colonel Wright, meeting with the school district and city folks and community, that the notions outlined in this amendment get our transparency notions, and they give some comfort and some awareness and some information about what will be going on and how it will be operated in the community. And it was helpful with respect to getting those cited and built within 5 days. So I think we've got to amp up our efforts here. I hope we can look at places like the convention center and other enclosed facilities that are appropriate, close to hospitals, easily accessible. I appreciate all the ideas from the community on sites. We pass those along. And what I've told folks is we may not be choosing the best sites, but we're choosing the sites that we can choose with the information and time we have. And I think in this crisis, that's the best we can do. And I've been very heartened by the response from folks in Shoreline that have been incredibly welcoming. I've not had 1 complaint email. I've had 2 with questions. And part of it was we had a little more time than the first 2 sites to go out and and do a little bit more communication, even though it was very short. But this amendment and the report we're receiving back has been helpful, and I believe will be helpful going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dombowski. Councilmember Lambert.
Thank you. Well, Councilmember Dombowski, you got to say it first, so I'll get to say it second. I want to thank Councilmember Upthegro for how eloquently he talked about the importance of this. I have two things I want to check on, though. First of all, should things get worse, we may need to be doing things on the fly. I like the explanation that we are creating the airplane while it's flying. As things come up that we didn't know about in the past or didn't expect, we will need to make some adjustments. So these are our objectives. This is what we intend to do, barring that we have, say, for instance, an earthquake in the middle of this. We've had 2 in my district in the last week. So, should there be a bad earthquake, we may not be able to do some of these things like secure lighting if the power's out. So I want to make sure that it's clear this is our goals, but should they not be practical because, for instance, there's a power outage at some point, then that will be something that we're going to. The one that concerns me is on the page 364, the middle of the page, the last bullet on A, where it says never physically engaging or having any physical contact with individuals temporarily residing in the property. I know this came up as a situation, unfortunately, in Kent. So I think we need to flesh that out a little bit more, that we will call the sheriff or we will do something. But I know that that's one that we need to follow through and get more information going forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We do have executive staff with us if we have any questions for them.
May I close, Madam Chair?
Please to close, Councilmember Upthegro.
I want to express some of the hope that I've experienced as time goes by, the way that even in communities where there was initial fear, such as Kent, to see a lot of community members come together now. You can approach these as a community with fear, or you can approach them with love and compassion. And at the Kent site now, we saw, I think, about $50,000 worth of supplies donated by Amazon. We see Starbucks providing coffee at these sites around the region. This recognition that these are our friends and our neighbors that are staying there to keep us safe, I think has really tapped into that community spirit that we've talked about earlier in the call with Councilmember Dunn's motion. It makes sense that people are afraid. I think everyone's afraid right now, not just of these sites, but of what's happening. And these sites are something tangible and physical in front of people, something they can react to in a way that that makes me understand why there is resistance. Also, we're fortunate to have access to a lot more information, both about what's necessary to protect public health and about the operations of these sites. So, as Councilmember Dombowski said so eloquently, this motion today, a lot of it's about transparency. I encourage my colleagues to share the information in it liberally. There's a cool little video King County's produced if you want to look inside the Kent site. It's just a short little video clip Public Health put that I know our staff has. But if there is a silver lining, it's that even in areas where there's been some initial resistance, I sense community members coming together and realizing that, we have sick people in every neighborhood. These sites aren't the public health risk that we're facing. In fact, they're part of the solution. So I want to thank the executive for doing this so quickly and getting it back to us. Encourage your support.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Upthegro. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dombowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Colwells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Upthegro.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer. Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
He's there.
Yep. Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 8 ayes and Councilmember Von Reitbauer excused.
All right, by our vote, we have adopted proposed motion 2020-0154. Okay, item 33 is proposed motion 2020-0156. Madam Clerk, please read the item into the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 33 is proposed motion 2020-0156 relating to the organization of the council.
Councilmember McDermott, would you put this item before us?
I move adoption of motion 2020-156.
Thank you, Councilmember McDermott. This is the companion motion to the ordinance we adopted earlier that adjusts the meeting times for Committee of the Whole and full council during the emergency. This motion clarifies that COW's jurisdiction includes pandemic response and recovery. Jeff Mom is with us. If there are questions, are there questions? Hearing none, I will urge your support and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Upthegrove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we've approved motion 2020-156. Madam Clerk, would you please read reappointment consent items 34 through 38 into the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 34 is proposed motion number 2020-0122, confirming the reappointment of Amy Blue to the King County Landmarks Commission. Item 35 is proposed motion number 2020-0124, confirming the executive's reappointment of Mindy Matson to the King County Emergency Management Advisory Committee. Item 36 is proposed motion number 2020-0127, confirming the executive's reappointment of Nancy Woodland to the King County Children and Youth Advisory Board. Item 37 is proposed motion number 2020-0129, confirming the executive's reappointment of Catherine Gokul to the King County Conservation Futures Advisory Committee. And item 38 is proposed motion number 2020-0130, confirming the executive's reappointment of Mark Johnson to the King County Conservation Futures Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember McDermott, would you put those items before us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of the consent agenda.
All right. The consent agenda is before us. All those in, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Upthegrove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we have adopted the reappointment consent agenda. And that brings us to item 39. If there's no objection, the published marked agenda, together with any changes made in today's meeting, will stand as the first reading and referral of ordinance and motions, items 39 through 53 as listed. And that brings us to item 54. We have no special or outside reports today, and we are going to move forward on the Labor Policy Committee items. Proposed ordinance number 2020-0105. Councilmember McDermott, would you put that before us?
I move adoption of ordinance 2020-105.
All right. Thank you. This is the ordinance approving and adopting the collective bargaining agreement negotiated by and between King County and the King County Police Officers Guild, which represents employees in the King County Sheriff's Office. We have been briefed on this at our last meeting and had some discussion on it. I have asked that this be brought before us today for a vote, in part because the world has changed in the last 2 weeks since we last talked about this. And 2 weeks ago, we were thinking about having fewer meetings and trying to wash our hands and wipe down surfaces in the office. Today, we are all, by order of the governor, sitting in our homes or elsewhere. And these are our first responders in the King County Sheriff's Office. And I think it is important that we approve their contract so that they have up-to-date and collectively bargained wages, hours, and working conditions as they respond out there in the world to this incredible crisis that we're all going through. In another item or so, there's a motion that I talked about earlier that I walked on today that states our intent, if adopted as a council, to address issues in the next bargaining with regard to the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight and their authority to conduct their work. So I'm happy to answer questions or have Cliff Curry, our council staff, is also available for questions. With that, do any members have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, Pete Von Reichbar.
Councilmember Von Reichbar.
Thank you. I think your comments are well spoken. If there ever was a time that we need to recognize our first responders, it's now. If there ever was a time to recognize that so many of them are close to retirement, and the impact of this decision has been long coming and is going to have a major impact on the lives of those who put their lives on the line for the rest of us. So I commend you and your direction that we should proceed on this quickly, and they are doing their duty. It's time for us to do our duty.
Thank you, Councilmember Von Reichbauer. Any other comments or questions?
Strongly support this contract and appreciate all the work both on the guild side and also on the executive branch side in negotiating this.
I would like to acknowledge Councilmember Dunn. Kidding. You're going to be.
I got to get better at that. Sorry.
Kidding. Okay. Thank you for your comments. Any other comments or questions?
Dembowski.
Councilmember Dembowski, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Whoa, I'm getting some feedback there. Is that all right?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
It sounded like I was in Star Trek.
I'm just going to go ahead and put you on mute as I'm listening to him.
Bob, we can hear you, and please, Councilmember Dembowski has the floor. So to speak.
Sorry.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
I want to concur in Councilmember Von Reichbauer's comments that we really owe everything we can possibly give right now to our first responders. In a different time, we might take more time and have more dialogue. At least I might want to on some pieces of this contract, particularly around civilian oversight, which is a concept that our voters have repeatedly asked us to have. This makes some strides in that direction. We don't get to the level that the management level folks, the sergeants and whatnot, have with respect to OEO, but there is at least a little path toward continuing to work on that. It's something that's important to me. Lawyers, doctors, even politicians have independent oversight through ethics boards and others, and I hope that we will get there in time. But this contract, I believe, we're 3.5 years overdue. They're working on the old contract for the old pay, and I find that disappointing and hope that we can work aggressively on the bargaining to get going right away so folks can be paid in real time what they should be being paid. And I want to just take a moment to express my appreciation for the incredible work of our deputies. They work in 3 cities in my district, Shoreline, Kenmore, and Woodinville, and just have a tremendous reputation. I've had a great opportunity to work with them, including particularly with Chief Ledford's folks up in Shoreline. And I just want to express my appreciation for them, while at the same time putting on the record that we got to continue our work on real civilian oversight with respect to the ability to have an independent investigation, to build trust, to keep trust in our communities. And I think that we'll get there. But now is not the time to go back to the table to try and get there now, in my view. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, too, want to say that I am very thankful for all the hard work that got us to where we are today. On the next bill, I would like to speak later on also, but I want to thank and honor our first responders, and that I too represent a lot of contract cities. I spoke with one of the contract city chiefs on Sunday, who told me that she had done a survey and 97% of the people in her area were pleased with the quality of policing work. And I told her that any elected official that got a 97% success rate would be pretty dang happy. So I am very pleased with the work that they're doing in my district, and I will be happy that they will know that we care and respect and honor them by getting this contract finally done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to pause. Thank you for that. I'm not hearing any other comments or questions, so I'll just pause for a second. And then with that, I'll ask the clerk to go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Colwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we have passed ordinance 2020-0105. This brings us to proposed ordinance number 2020-0106. And I will call on Councilmember McDermott to move that item.
I move adoption of ordinance 2020-106.
Thank you, Councilmember McDermott. Just briefly, this is the attached appropriation, a net supplemental appropriation of $10,103,000 to fund the budget that we just adopted. Are there any questions?
Dembowski.
Councilmember Dembowski.
I think, Madam Chair, just so we have it orally on the record, what is the amount of this that's for back pay, and what were those annual increases that the deputies have had to forego while this negotiation has gone on for 3 years?
We have Cliff Curry on the line. Cliff, do you have the answer to that question?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. This is Clifton Curry of Council staff. Councilmember Dembowski, according to the fiscal note that came along with this, it shows that the retroactive pay, which would be the pay that would take them up to approximately this point in time, for deputies is $5.7 million, and for the sergeants it's $1.4 million. So it's a little bit over $7.5 million for the to do the retro pay. And that would be the amount that foregone because the contract is so late.
Thank you, Clifton. And on a percentage increase in terms of the annual increase, what does that translate to? Maybe Bob has to address that. I don't know.
Councilmember, we have the first 2 years of the contract, 2017 and 2018. For 2017, the increase was 2.25%, and the 2018 increase was 3.25%. General wage increase.
Thank you, Clifton. In 2019 and on the go-forward years, where I know this is actually on the prior item, but I'm trying to shoehorn it in here on the money item.
Maybe we could call on, I heard Bob Railton was on the phone. Bob, do you have at the tip of your tongue the percentage increases, both wages and, I guess, COLA for the term of the contract?
Madam Chair, Bob Railton, Deputy Director, Office of Labor Relations. Yes, I do have that information. It's only a general wage increase, and the wage increase for 2019 is 4%. The wage increase for 2020 is 3.25%. And the wage increase for 2021 is 3.25%.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Colwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove. Councilmember, thank you. Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we've adopted proposed ordinance 2020-0106. Item 57 is a labor policy, and my notes indicate that the consent of the sponsor, Councilmember Dembowski, and if there are no objections, this labor policy, which relates to COVID-19 response, will be referred to the Committee of the Whole to be taken up for consideration and recommendation. Is that correct, Councilmember Dembowski?
Yes, that was the intent, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. And
thank you.
We've got, if I could just have 1 minute to follow up on an email I sent to you all for anybody listening in, that we've got a kind of a dynamic labor environment right now with people working at home, people not able to come in, and this is a vehicle to the extent the council wants to weigh in to give some direction on how folks should be paid, what kind of leave they should be required to use or not, to be able to work on that. And so that's what it is. And if there's no need, there's no need. But it was started maybe 14 days ago when things were a little less clear about what the executive wanted to do, and so I'm not on any particular push at this time, but it's there to work through the committee structure if folks want to.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, this brings us to our last item, item 58. This is proposed motion number 2020-0159. Madam Clerk, would you please read it into the record?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 58 is proposed motion number 2020-0159, a motion establishing King County Council's intent related to collective bargaining with the King County Police Officers Guild.
All right, thank you. Councilmember McDermott, would you move that item, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of motion 2020-159.
All right, thank you very much. I will speak to it. As I mentioned this earlier when we talked about walking this on today, this is a motion, so a statement of intent by the council to do future work. And the future work that we are talking about is taking up labor policy, making sure that our adopted labor policy contains everything in it that is necessary for the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight to perform their charter and ordinance functions. Frankly, it looks pretty good. It's pretty thorough, but there's at least one item that our OLEO director has pointed out would make some sense to consider changing in that future work. And also an intent, this motion would state an intent to adopt by ordinance or consider adopting by ordinance direction about how the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight can participate in future bargaining around issues that relate to the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight at the table in order to, that's the mechanism that we would use to push forward on the pieces of authority that OLEO is intended to have by charter and by ordinance, but although progress was made in the last contract, still is not fully negotiated. And there was a final thing that I am blanking on. I'm going to call on Jeff Mum because he's going to remind me what the third thing was. I hope he's still there. I see you. You're there.
Sorry, I'm dealing with the dog.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question, Councilmember?
I was asking, there were three operative items in this, and maybe Cliff Curry is the person who can answer what's the third operative item.
Madam Chair, the third operative item would be to solicit public input as you go forward developing policies for the next contract negotiation.
Right. Very good. Thank you for reminding me. So that's the intent of this motion. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm really glad to have Cliff on the line to help me with that. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair?
Councilmember Lambert.
Thank you. I thank you very much for bringing this forward. Two things that I think are going to be important. One is you did mention public input, and we got a lot of input from people who live outside the areas or the jurisdiction of the unincorporated areas. And I think it's going to be very important that we realize that for the most part, the sheriff oversees the unincorporated areas, and the mayors of those towns report to us as council members very frequently on how things are going, as well as the public. So I think that we need to be very clear that where the public input is coming from, so it's not from other people. We had people testify from a city outside of our county the other day. So I think that that is something we need to be very careful of. I appreciated last week Steve Eggert, their officer who is, 30 years, been involved in these negotiations. And he talked about a number of things, but one of them was trust. And I have over the years heard things like that there have been situations where they, Oleo stepped outside of the parameters or outside of what was actually accepted by policing standards. And I think that we should have a mediated conversation to start and try to get the board clear and be able to have people sit down and say, okay, where has the miscommunication happened? What's happening on this side or on that side that there is no trust? And I think unless we can get all the 800-pound gorillas out on the table, we keep dancing around it. And I think that we need to start from ground zero, figuring out what's gone wrong, and then start figuring out how we are going to solve those problems before we start into the mediation conversations. The 800-pound gorilla needs to be dealt with. So I really appreciated last week Steve Eggert being so open and honest about what he sees. And I think that's going to be important for us all then to be informed on what those 800-pound gorillas are, and so that we have a better idea, should we bring legislation forward, what it is that's gone on behind the scenes that we may or may not have knowledge of. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay, I will go ahead and close on this one. I think what I would say, just in partial response to Councilmember Lambert's comments, are the very existence of an Office of Law Enforcement Oversight suggests that there will be tension. You know, there will be tension between the function of independent oversight and the folks who are charged with being out doing the job each day. And I think our role is to make sure that oversight is robust, that it's real, that it's fair, that it builds support in the community and trust in the community. But I don't think that we are going to ever be able to completely do away with that fundamental tension. It's there for a reason. It's similar to the tension that exists between branches of government that are meant to be separate but equal branches of government, and that we have checks and balances. So I'm happy to move this work forward. I'm pleased actually that there was a number of items in the contract that we just approved that advanced the ability for Oleo to perform their functions. And I think that the work that we do this year in Labor Policy Committee will help to hopefully move that to completion and to closure, because it has been 5 years more since the charter amendment. And I think it would be nice to put the authority question to bed so that we can focus on performance and building of that trust that we want to see. So with that, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Dembowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Cole-Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Lambert.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Aye.
Councilmember Up the Grove.
Aye.
Councilmember Von Reitbauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Zahalai. Councilmember Zahalai.
Aye.
Madam Chair.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9 ayes, 0 noes.
By our vote, we've adopted proposed motion 2020-0159. Given the procedural changes we adopted this week, our next meeting will be next Tuesday in Committee of the Whole, and our next council meeting will be in April. We'll get all that calendared and arranged, and hopefully we will up our game in terms of remote meeting participation. But I just really want to thank everyone who worked so hard to make this meeting happen. It was even less easy than it looked. and any challenges with sort of the equipment and the procedure were on my part because the staff just did an absolutely amazing job pulling this together. I don't have a full list in front of me, and I'm going to leave some people's names out unintentionally, but I want to just call out Melanie Pedroza, our clerk, and all of your folks who just made this happen, the technical support staff, and Brent Rash, Kendall Moore of our legal counsel, and my own chief of staff, Krista Commonson, Jeff Mumm, and the policy staff. Everybody really chipped in, and I know I'm leaving people out. I apologize. I'm also losing my voice. So thank you all, colleagues, for joining in. We did some business today, and I'm glad to see that we did. So if there's no other business to come before the body, we will be adjourned.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I will rescind my adjournment. Councilor Kwiatkowski.
I didn't know if you wanted to, but because of the technical issues, there was a vote or two. I think that maybe Councilmember von Reichbauer didn't get his eye in, and I didn't know if you were going to reopen those and give him the opportunity.
Councilmember von Reichbauer, I didn't do a really good job of keeping track of which ones. Perhaps the clerk did.
I'm looking now. It was one item 32, I think.
Okay, so let's go back real quick and see
Okay.
which one it was. That was 32. 32 was the motion acknowledging receipt of the COVID-19 plan for isolation, quarantine, and recovery sites, sponsored by Councilmember Up the Grove. Councilmember von Reichbauer, would you like your vote to be recorded?
Well, that's ironic. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you for reminding me, and we'll just have to record him as excused. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
You made history.